morning, everybody. Welcome to City Hall. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to City Hall, welcome to Council Chambers, and welcome to a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Tuesday, December 16th, 2003. City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Meetings are open to the public, and we do invite you to join us. For members of the public unable to attend council meetings, we can be viewed live on your cable station, Channel 35. We can also be viewed live via webcast from the city's homepage or heard via council phone. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Hahn, Labange, Ludlow, Misakowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weisstein, Padilla. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The council is officially in session. Before beginning with the matters appearing on today's agenda, this is Tuesday, and we do have a custom of our salute to the flag every Tuesday morning. Let me call upon Councilmember Garcetti to lead us.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I can ask everybody to please stand. Place your hand over your heart and join with me saying, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Smith moves and Ms. Misakowski seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Cardenas moves and Mr. Labange seconds.
Mr. President, as much as there is a quorum, do you wish to take public comment at this time?
Yes, new way of doing things around here. Public comment is now taken at the beginning of our council meetings. So the council now calls forward Eugene Hernandez.
Good morning, Mr. President, council members. I'm Eugene Hernandez, the co-chairperson of the San Fernando Valley chapter of Parents of Murdered Children. And the reason I'm here today is because I've been unable to obtain an audience with either Council President Cardenas or City Councilman Cardenas, nor Mr. Padilla to address the concerns of our community, and particularly our members. We have 48 members of parents who have lost their loved ones through violence and gangs, and we seek assistance from the City Council. One member in particular who lives in Sun Valley, Mr. Cardenas' district, Rachel Griffith, has lost 2 sons within the last 2 years. We would like to meet with the Council President or Mr. Cardenas to establish a reward, because our members wonder, how is it possible that we were able to capture a cop killer within a few weeks and have 1,000 officers? What about the average citizen? What about doing away with the gangs that have plagued Pacoima and San Fernando and caused misery and the loss of loved ones? And we just ask your assistance, because if whatever personal bias you may have against me, I don't think you should take it out on our membership. And I think we're in the same battle together. We have participated in Hands Across Pacoima March and to end gang violence, and that is why I've come here today.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Mr. Hernandez, you have met with folks in my office, and we do have your contact information. We'll be in touch with you to arrange those meetings. Mr. Cardenas?
I'd also like to thank Mr. Hernandez for coming forward today, and we have met before, Mr. Hernandez, since I have been elected to the legislature, and I have been responding in, for example, by putting forward the most aggressively funded juvenile justice legislation in the country, and I do look forward to working with you some more.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Duke Russell, are you available? Please come forward at this time. This is public comment for today's meeting.
Members of the board, and people in the audience, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I am here to plead for the help of the City Council to address a problem that is easily solved at Los Angeles City College now that the City College has $241 million given by student taxpayers and other taxpayers in the city for parking lots and new buildings and repairs. On December 3rd, I made my 5th speech before the Board of Trustees to warn them that a beautiful sports field was going to be destroyed soon for a parking lot at the small campus. And I told them that the reason is that the huge golf driving range there, which has a 35-year lease, is the problem that is causing this terrible crisis. I'm hoping that we can solve this problem, and here's the way we can solve it. The Board of Trustees 4 years ago approved a golf range deal. It was a mistake, and we all know it's a mistake to give someone a 35-year lease on public school property for a public golf driving range. Now is the time to save the Snyder Field, which is used as a community park and has been used for a community park for over 75 years to help young people stay out of gangs and crime and jail.
If I may ask you to conclude, please.
Just one more minute, please. This is so important to the city of Los Angeles.
It is very important. We also have other speakers to hear from. Go ahead.
Well, the way to solve the problem is to buy out the 35-year lease now. The Board of Trustees wants to wait 10 years. Chancellor Mark Drummond wants to wait 10 years. Let's do it now. Get rid of the golf range. Save Snyder Field. We'll have plenty of parking there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council now calls forward Maria Loya and Jessica Goodhart.
Mr. Padilla, while he's coming up, just real quick.
Mr. Garcetti, while they come up.
Just while those next speakers coming up, Mr. Russell, I want to thank you for your leadership on this. Mr. LaBonge and I will sign a letter saying just that. We know the mistake that was made, and the opportunity should not be missed. And I just want to thank you for your leadership, and we'll get on that right away. And we appreciate you coming down to City Council.
Okay, should I begin? Okay, good morning. My name is Jessica Goodhart, and I'm co-director of research at the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Over the past 4 months, Lane, we're a nonprofit organization. We've been conducting an evaluation of working conditions at LAX restaurants. Our intent is to evaluate whether contractors at the airport are living up to the letter and spirit of the Living Wage Ordinance and the Responsible Contractor Ordinance passed by this body. For this evaluation, we interviewed 119 of the 1,100 food service workers at the airport, reviewed lawsuits, union contracts, and complaints. We gave letter grades to each of the 10 companies in 6 categories, including compensation, provision of health insurance, compliance with labor laws, and workplace safety. And I'm here today to present you with findings from that report. We have the report card. As you can see, no company got a perfect score, but our grades do cover the full spectrum. On the positive side, we found restaurants that were providing free family health insurance, decent working conditions and wages far above the industry average. And HMS Host and Concession Management Services both receive an A- and set a standard that all companies at the airport should match. And the living wage ordinance has made a difference at companies like Euratel, McDonald's, and Java, where workers are earning more than they otherwise would without the policy. But very serious problems remain. 4 of the 10 LAX food service companies receive an overall grade of D or F. Half get poor or failing marks in the area of health care. Half get poor or failing marks in the area of complying with existing laws. And the 3 of the 4 restaurants that fare the worst don't have the protection either of a union contract or the living wage ordinance, and they are Hamada, Creative Croissant, and Sushi Boy, and they are all paying poverty wages, failing to provide health insurance, and each company faces allegations of labor law violations. And the 4th company, McDonald's, I know this body has expressed concern about working conditions at one of the largest food service employers there. They are paying a living wage, but it is far from a model employer. We had a worker testify from McDonald's testify at the Airport Commission yesterday who talked about sexual harassment that she experienced at the company. Unfortunately, this is not the first time allegations of sexual harassment have arisen. There appears to be a pattern there, and worse still, workers who exercise their rights and speak out about workplace abuses have talked about being retaliated against. And many other companies also appear to be either violating workers' rights or engaging in practices that violate basic principles of respect and dignity.
Thank you. If I can ask you to conclude, please.
So I would hope that you would read the entire report card carefully and that it serves as the basis for a concerted effort to ensure that all airport employees meet the city's established standards for fair and decent treatment of workers. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Maria Loya, and I'm the Director of Policy Implementation and Training with the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy. Thank you for giving us the opportunity here to share with you the findings of this report. As you have just heard, the findings of this report is very disturbing because it basically demonstrates that there has been, or there exists a trend of essentially a trend of providing low wage jobs, a trend of exploiting workers, and a trend of violating labor laws. But at the same time, you also see companies that are treating their workers with respect, that are providing living wages, and that are providing affordable health coverage, not only for workers, but also for their families. And so you see that, you're able to see that providing respect and dignity for their workers, as well as a living wage, is possible at LAX. And so we feel that with this report, we're able to demonstrate that to not only the employers, but also to city officials, that indeed this is possible, and the fact that all of the work that you have put together in order in implementing these types of ordinances, such as living wage, worker retention, responsible contractor, all ordinances that were intended to improve the quality of jobs at the airport and to basically raise the standard at the airport, should be used and essentially implemented. And what we found with this report is that indeed not all of these ordinances are being implemented. And some of the recommendations that you will find in this report is to really to ensure that the living wage ordinance is being implemented accurately. A lot of the companies that currently are under living wage aren't providing their employers with earned income tax credit information, and for some employees and families, that can make a difference. Another recommendation Is that?
If I can ask you to conclude, please.
I'm sorry. One other recommendation is contractor responsibility. And we'd like to ask to see if we can improve responsible contractor to provide protection to workers when they are speaking out against working conditions. Anti-retaliation clause that exists in the living wage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one final speaker. This will be the final speaker under public comment for this morning, Mark W. Smith.
Oh, Williams? Okay, no, thank you.
Good morning. I come here today to never have this ever happen to another person in the city of Los Angeles. I'm a leukemia survivor, bone marrow transplant, 1988. I tried for 4 years to pay off my debt, and I had to end up declaring bankruptcy. I came down here, I went to a bankruptcy court, I had to pay the bankruptcy lawyers $1,000 to represent me, and they sent me directions to come to the court down here off Figueroa. And it said to come down to 8th Street, turn right, go to Figueroa, make a right-hand side turn. Make sure you bring plenty of quarters because there's parking meters on both sides. And if you choose to, you can park underneath. I'm a handicapped person. I have a handicap placard. I parked in a position since they told me to come here before my hearing, which was at 3:30, but unbeknownst to me, there's no parking after 3 p.m. Well, I lean down, I don't look up. You have a parking sign that says no stopping after 3 p.m. It says there after 3 o'clock. Well, I got there at 2:30 early. I went into the parking area. I went into the court, I come out, my truck is gone. My diabetic supplies are in my truck. My cell phone are in my truck. I come out there, I've never been here in my life. I go out, I look around. I have nothing but $1 in my pocket and my wallet. I don't have credit cards anymore. I walked down the street. I tried to make change in the metro section. I put my $1 bill in there. It gave me a Susan B. Anthony. It doesn't work on the bus. I got into it. I called on the phone to find out where my truck went. Well, they told me it's on Vitrell's Towing. Someone called for me. It was very nice. I went from there. I went to Temple, which was 7.5 miles away. I had new shoes on. I had blisters on my feet. I didn't know where the tow yard was. I tried to find it. I came here, the city hall, it was closed.
Sir, let me ask you to conclude and try to find somebody to help you.
Well, sir,
Okay.
I haven't finished yet. This isn't even close to what happened to me.
Okay, now I understand, and you've had a few minutes as everybody
this
else
is the
has.
thing I came here for. I've called Bernard Parks, who I know. He's a good man, but his secretary wouldn't go through. I called Mayor Hahn. I went through your things. I've called Villagrosa. Who else did I call? Molina. I called.
Let me ask one of my colleagues to maybe get a staff person to be able to assist you.
I'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much. This concludes public comment for today's meeting. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President. Before beginning the regular agenda, items 1 and 129, applicant consents to a continuance to January 6, 2004.
Okay, members, items 1 and 129, which are to be considered jointly. We do have a request for continuance. Is there any objection? Seeing none, these items are continued. And anybody here for public comment on item number 1, please know we're not taking action on those items today. Next item, please.
Item number 2 is a public hearing item. It's a Planning Land Use Management Committee report, and I believe there are cards on that item.
We do have cards on item number 2. Let's call that item special.
Items 3, 4, and 5 are also public hearing items. They're ordinances regarding street lighting districts.
Items 3, 4, and 5 now before us. I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on these items. Public hearings are open. Public hearings are closed. Members wishing to call any specials, items 3, 4, or 5. Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. Next item, please.
Items 6 through 10 are public hearings on street lighting districts. Council should open the hearing and continue the hearings and ordinances to January 7th.
Members, items 6 through 10 now before us. And again, I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on these items. Public hearings are open, and unless there is an objection, these matters are continued to January 7th. Next item.
Item number 11 is a hearing and ordinance regarding Wilshire Center BID.
Item 11 now before us. And again, without requests from members of the public to address the council, the public hearing is satisfied on item number 11. Request to call this item special. Seeing none, please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item.
Item number 12 is a public convenience or necessity in Council District 13, and I believe the recommendation is to grant the application. A motion is required.
Okay, do we have a motion on item number 12, an item in Council District 13? We do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on this item. Mr. Garcetti moves approval. If there's no further discussion, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Items 13 through 47 are items for which public hearings have been held. Item 13 is a commissioner. Do you wish to hold that one on the desk?
Let's hold all commission appointments on the desk. That leaves items 14 through 47 still before us. Public hearings have been held on these items. A motion from the floor would be required to reopen the public hearings. Seeing no such motion. Specials. Mr. Garcetti?
Yes, if we can continue item 30, please, to Wednesday, the 17th of December, and if we can call 31 special as well.
Members request to continue item number 30. Without objection, so ordered. Item 31, call special by Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Labange.
This is a point of information. Lon Nguyen, the council liaison for the Department of Transportation, and James Okazaki, the assistant general manager, are working with that gentleman on his problem. A point of information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. Mr. Parks.
I'd like to call 29 special in conjunction with 130, 131, and 132, and ask that we have a short public hearing. We have several members of the LA Community College present, and also 41.
And 41.
And, Mr. President, on items 46, there are two reports on the file. On item 47, there's a Personnel Committee report and a Majority and Minority report on the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee.
Members, we need motions on items 46 and 47. Ms. Hahn? Ms. Hahn? Any specials?
42.
42, call special by Ms. Hahn. Mr. Garcetti?
I move the personnel report on that.
Receive and file the other two? Okay.
That's on item 47. Mr. Weiss?
Call 33 special.
Okay, any other specials? Items 14 through 47, called special. We have items 29, 31, 33, 41, 42, and we have a motion, item 47. We still need a motion, item 46. Let's hold item 46 special as we await a motion. Ms. Misikowski needs to recuse herself on item 47. So let's first take a vote on items 14 through 46. Please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. And now, as Ms. Misikowski excuses herself from council chambers momentarily, let the roster reflect her absence, please.
Could we ask item 18 to go forthwith?
Forthwith on item 18. Okay, the roster reflects Ms. Misikowski's absence. Let's open the roll on item 47. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. And let's invite Ms. Misikowski back in and proceed to the next item.
Next items, Mr. President, items for which public hearings have not been held, 48 through 119, and there is an amended map on item number 72, and it's technical in nature, and all the parties do agree on that. 10 votes are required for consideration of these matters.
Okay, unless there's an objection, items 48 through 119 are before us today, and we'll consider item 72 as amended. Items 48 through 119 I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on these items. Public hearings are open. Public hearings are closed. Specials,
61 and 67, please.
61 and 67, call special by Ms. Gruhl. Mr. Smith?
Number 70.
70, call special by Mr. Smith. Mr. Cardenas?
65 and 66.
And Mr. Zine?
77.
77, called special by Mr. Zine. Any other specials? Any other specials? Seeing none, item 48 is a commission appointment. We'll hold that on the desk. On the balance of the items, 49 through 119, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved, including item 72 as amended. Next items, please.
The next items are item 120 through 128 are closed sessions. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Let's hold all closed session matters on the desk.
On the supplemental agenda, item number 1,
We call 116 special, please. Oh, is it continued? Sorry, continue till Friday. For Mr.
116?
For Mr. Ludlow, yeah.
Okay, let's, I need a motion for reconsideration. Mr. Garcetti moves.
reconsider.
Let's open the roll on reconsideration of item 116. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, item 116 is reconsidered and without objection continued to this Friday. Items 120 through 128 are closed session items. 129 has been continued. 130 through 132 have been called special. We still have 133 remaining. I do not have cards for members of the public to address the council on item 133. Public hearings are satisfied. Any requests for special? If not, then let's open the roll on item 133, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
going back to the items called special, item number 2 is called special inasmuch as there are cards from the public.
Before taking up item number 2, we do have 2 commission appointments before us, items 13 and 48. Let's proceed with those matters first.
Item number 13 is Arts, Parks, Health, and Aging Committee report recommending approval of Ms. Karen Allen to the Native American Indian Commission.
Okay, members, item 13 now before us. We do have a commission appointment and a committee report recommending approval. Can I ask for some quiet behind the horseshoe, please? It's getting loud in here. And I know our chambers is very full today. I'll ask for the members of the public's cooperation in trying to keep it quiet in here as we conduct business. Item 13 is now before us. Are there members wishing to be heard on item 13? If not, then let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for serving the city. Forthwith on item 13, please. Next item.
Item number 48 is confirmation of Ms. Paula G. Leftwich to the Rent Adjustment Commission, and HCED Committee waived consideration of that matter.
Okay, as Ms. Leftwich comes forward, let me acknowledge no request from members of the public to address the council on these items, satisfying the public hearing on item 48. Members wishing to be heard? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
Thank you very much.
14 ayes.
Thank you for your service. Unanimous approval. Forthwith, please. And now let's return to item number 2.
Item number 2 is a public hearing item. It's Planning Land Use Management Committee report, and there are cards.
Okay, item number 2 now before us, and we have quite a few cards on item number 2. So if we can put up a clock. I think most of the cards that are submitted are for the proposal. We may have a few against, so we'll try to be balanced in the time that we afford each side of the issue. Council calls forward Mr. Rick Donnelly, Dudley Rutherford, Elisa McLean, Larry Yagubian, and I'll call other speakers as we proceed. When I call your name, please come forward, and if you would form a line behind the podium, that would expedite our public hearing, and I'd ask that you keep your comments to as close to a minute and no more than 2 as possible. We have quite a few speakers this morning. Mr. Donnelly, Mr. Rutherford, Ms. McLean, Larry Yagubian. This is your opportunity. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. President, I'm Rick Donnelly. I'd like to relinquish my time to the superintendent of the school, David Kendrick,
and some
Okay.
other ones we've chosen as leadership. Thank you.
Okay. Please come forward now.
Good morning, members of the Los Angeles City Council. My name is David Kendrick, and I have the privilege of being the superintendent of Hillcrest Christian School. A vision was conceived 7 years ago to expand the ministry of this school. Why? This school had established an outstanding reputation in our community and in the San Fernando Valley. We taught our young people that to be successful, it meant to place God first in their lives. Not only did children change, but families changed spiritually. As a result of God's blessing, our enrollment surged and we made plans for expansion. This was unfamiliar territory to us, but we tried to follow all the appropriate steps. We spoke to the community, homeowner groups, various decision makers, and those in political offices. Unintentionally, we stumbled along the way. We found it difficult to please everyone. New faces in the equation surfaced continually, and each had their own agenda of what needed to be done. We tried faithfully to follow each step in the process, but the longer our project took, the more confusing things became, and we were told repeatedly, you should have done it this way. Additionally, we did not involve ourselves in the political aspect, and yet the school found itself in the middle of a storm. We have been a quiet voice throughout the process and were convinced that everything would work out until the end. Yet we have received ridicule, criticism, and been falsely accused. A once proud school has been battered and desecrated by the system. In the Granada Hills area, there has been a battle because of the dump. It is unwanted by the majority. And now, because of a small minority, we are unfairly classified to think that we are also a detriment. Well, we are not. Our sole purpose is to enhance the lives of children, hundreds and eventually thousands of children. It is a fact that in the year 2000, LA Unified declared the necessity to build 84 new schools because of the increased student population. The public school system has an easier course with little accountability and raises their monies every so often with a new bond issue. But what about the private Christian school? How many new Christian schools have been approved? You may not understand this, but this process is an impossible one and it's not a fair system. For 7 years, we tried to please everyone, neighbors, special interest groups, city planners, and council members. We redesigned the project 7 times and ended up with a possible new campus that had 160 conditions to adhere to, and a project that was so greatly reduced from the original master plan that economically it was not feasible to build and would be doomed to failure because of the many conditions imposed upon it. In the summer, there was a consideration to withdraw our application for a new campus. Because of these issues and the divisions within the community, this would only be done if certain conditions on our present site could be restored in order for us to operate like any other school. Unfortunately, it was not accomplished, and so we never formally withdrew our application to expand. Our school has spent over $1 million, but what has it got us? We will not have a conditional use permit for our new campus. Secondly, we were to get a clarification of our present campus usage in this process. Now we are about to have placed upon us what we believe to be even heavier restrictions than we had 7 years ago when we first made application to expand. Yet for 25 years you will not find a complaint filed against this school. It is not right. And at the conclusion of your decision, everyone will point an accusing finger at each other and say, it is their fault that Hillcrest Project failed. Bottom line, the children and ultimately many families will be the losers, and there will be no winners in this case. All of us in this room know there is a need for schools, not an average school, not a good school, but an excellent school. And we are one of those schools and very proud of it. Additionally, I believe that the majority in this room has a sensitivity to God. But I know that because of our case, our parents, our students, our church, our pastor, and other Christian schools, other churches, will continue to unite together for one purpose. What is it? The Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore, no matter what the outcome today, we will faithfully serve God with all of our heart and strive to make a spiritual impact in the lives of our young people in order that we may better our community, the region of Los Angeles, this great nation, and ultimately this world. One day, our vision to expand will be achieved and God will receive the glory for it. I humbly thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please, if you would introduce yourself.
My name is Dudley Rutherford. I'm the pastor, shepherd of the Hills Church in Porter Ranch, California. And we have about 10 to 12,000 people who attend our church. And I just wanted the council to know that this school was an extension of our church. We are one church of literally thousands of churches in the San Fernando Valley. And I would just appreciate your consideration on behalf of Hillcrest Christian School to enable them to continue to make a difference in the lives of the young people in the San Fernando Valley. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. State your name, please.
My name is Elisa McLean. I am the elementary principal at Hillcrest Christian School, and I defer my time to Lance Halliday.
Go ahead.
My name is Lance Halliday. I'm the middle school principal at Hillcrest. I also have 2 children that attend there. I want to sum up what I have to say to the council in basically just this statement. We want to operate our school just like any other school would operate. The current hours of operation are extremely limited for our school. It really cuts back on the number of things that we can do as a school. We've tried to work with the community over the past, and much to our dismay, the Planning Commission overturned the ruling that our zoning administrator had made and denied our request for the West Campus. We have the East Campus now, basically, and we just want to operate our school just like any other school would operate. I've been on the ground floor and a lot of this stuff. I've seen how the school, the administration has worked. I've seen the commitment and the dedication of the parents. So I appeal to the City Council to allow our school to have the usage just as other schools do. And I'm affected as a parent because my son is involved in sports. I'm affected as an administrator too. I interface with lots of parents in the community, many of whom move into the Granada Hills area to put their children in our school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. My name is Larry Yagubian, and I defer my time to Carrie Ann Long. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carrie Ann Long, and I'm a former student and currently a first grade teacher at Hillcrest Christian School. I want to give you today a brief opportunity to look into the life of just one child that your decision today will affect. Jessie is a girl that could melt your heart. Her playful curls dangle around her soft brown skin, and her bright green eyes illuminate her face. But inside this beautiful creature is a broken and battered little girl. Jessie's father had been sentenced to life when she was 4, and her mother decided she didn't want her anymore when she was 5. Now Grandma had full custody and enrolled her at Hillcrest Christian School. Unfortunately, this child's tormented past was not shared with me. Grandma could not make it to meet the teacher night because I had to close my classroom doors before she could get off work. The mother-daughter tea, open house, and the first grade musical were all not attended by Jessie and her grandmother. Jessie spent her entire first grade school year making projects her grandma would never see hung on the classroom wall and practicing for parts she would never get to perform on stage. Jessie's counselor said sports would be beneficial for her decaying sense of self-worth. However, we could not offer her that due to the fact that all our elementary sports have been canceled and cut as a result of our Saturday restrictions. Ladies and gentlemen, I am teaching an unfortunate generation of children. Broken families, single parents, and in some cases, no parents at all. These children are crying out to be recognized by the families that love them. I ask you this: how can I possibly get families more involved when they can't get off work in time to attend their children's events and activities? I'm not asking you today to vote in favor of Hillcrest or vote in favor of the neighbors. I'm asking you today to look into your hearts and vote in favor of Jessie. Thank you. I'm also submitting a notebook of letters of area churches and schools, parents that are interested in this project.
Thank you very much. Let me call the next batch of names and ask you to introduce yourself, but go ahead and you can be the next speaker. I have cards from Susan Cox, Dan Rigney, Dana Steinberg, Mark Campbell, Lisa DeLuca, and Brenda Miner.
Good morning. I'm Dan Rigney. I spent a lot of time in the 70s and 80s in these chambers as a developer coming in with projects. It's unfortunate that I see today what I saw in the past. 2 or 3 council members who definitely are listening, and the rest who have themselves parked in other conversations. I think it's unfortunate because part of the reason we're here today is because this school has been a little naive in the way it's operated. It's done just as Mr. Kendrick said, followed the rules, done what they were told, had supposedly the tacit support of the last councilman. The current councilman during his campaign came out and told us he'd support the school, and for that I know he received thousands of votes, only to turn on us at a later time. The school is not asking for much. This was a church for 10, 15 years before it became a school. They had Saturday weddings, they had Friday night weddings, Wednesday night chapel service, Bible study services, Saturday sports on the backfield. These things were part of this community long before the school became a part of it. As the school has functioned and grown, they have gone on and operated like a typical school with back-to-school nights, limited sports activities, open houses, and things like that. Right now, under the conditional uses it's set up, the community wants to ratchet down and say, sorry, you're going to have back-to-school afternoon. You're going to have open house in the afternoon. We have an award-winning choir that's won awards up and down the state. Can they bother to have an evening performance to praise what they believe in? No, they can't. They've got to curtail that with a Christmas dinner that'll end so that the campus is entirely emptied out by 7 p.m. so that we don't get these dubious complaints from the neighborhood. It's time for this council, and I could care less what Mr. Smith does at this time. It's time for this council to say, give us the reasonable use of our property.
Thank you very much.
Allow them to operate. I thought I still had time, sir.
Well, I asked everybody to keep it as close to 2. We put up 3 minutes.
Okay. Anyway, you can see what it is. We're asking for reasonable use. That's it. And I cannot understand why this council would not side with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Your name,
I'm
please?
Susan Cox. I would like to defer my time to Mrs. Steinberg.
Okay.
Good morning, Council. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I have had 2 daughters attend Hillcrest Christian School for the past 10 years. My oldest daughter, Danielle, began attending Hillcrest when she was in the 2nd grade. We changed schools from the public schools because, quite frankly, the public schools had let my daughter down. My daughter came back complaining of the cruel treatment that she received in a public arena. We looked high and low for a school that could provide her the kind of support that my child needed to thrive. I can go on and on for numerous stories of the kind of academic as well as spiritual and emotional support the people at Hillcrest and the families and the children have provided my kids. I could go on and on because, again, I have 10 years of experience with this fabulous institution, the kind of institution I would think as a council you would want to promote in our society. Let me go on with another very personal story, and I hope you give me an opportunity to explain this. 1 month ago today, on this very date, both of my daughters, Ashley, age 15, and Danny, age 17, were involved in an extremely serious car accident. Both of them were taken to separate trauma centers, given the nature of their accident. During the entire course of my daughter's stay at the trauma centers, the school personnel as well as the kids from school came to the hospitals, prayed for my children, supported our family, and gave us the kind of support that, quite frankly, in today's world is unprecedented. 3 days after my oldest daughter was hospitalized, she died. She died 3 days after her hospitalization. While she was in the hospital, dying from extreme brain trauma, the people at Hillcrest Christian School, as well as at least 50 of the children from school, came to the hospital, came to Northridge Hospital, went to the chapel, and prayed for my daughter, came up to the critical care unit and prayed at the doors of the critical care unit. Unfortunately, God had another decision for my beautiful daughter, and she is now in heaven, but she will not be forgotten. Following my daughter's death, I have to tell you the support and love we received, not only from the personnel at Hillcrest, again, the wonderful teachers, the wonderful administrators, but from the people, the kids, the wonderful kids this school has produced and cultivated. They came to my home and did a prayer vigil and candle lighting. They went to the scene and did the same. And quite frankly, the focus now became on healing my family, supporting my 15-year-old daughter who was coming out of the hospital with injuries of her own. She's lost her sister. She's had injuries of her own. These people have not let her down, have not let us down. They continue to embrace Ashley. They continue to hold her tight. They continue to love her and call us and make sure that we know they are there for us.
Thank you.
The school, as well as the 12th grade class, basically designed our service. And let me tell you, it was the most awe-inspiring service I've ever been to in my entire life. It was joyful, it was supportive, it was beautiful. And I have to tell you, the kids at the school designed the service, including the video of my daughter doing all the silly things that she did, including all of the doves at the graveside, the balloons at the graveside, the flowers. These kids continue to support us, support me, and I'm telling you, these are our future. This is our future. These kind of kids. If we don't...
I do need to ask you to conclude, please. I'm
I
sorry.
will conclude. If we don't begin cultivating institutions that provide the kind of support that this school provides, quite frankly, we're going to be a failure as a society.
Thank you very much.
Please support Hillcrest.
I have, in no particular order apparently, Mark Campbell, Lisa DeLuca, Brenda Maynor, Ralph Schaefer, Cheryl Green, James Dieter.
I turned in a card. I was the first person here this morning.
Go ahead. Your name?
My name is Doris Alwag. I have been a resident of Pacoima for the last 30 years. I have faxed all of you a letter in regards to my feelings to the restrictions that have been placed on Hillcrest Christian School. I inform you that 2 of my children graduated from 9th grade in '85 and '87 from Hillcrest, at which time we had to find high schools for them to go to because Hillcrest did not have high school like they had planned at that time. I have been at every hearing in regards to this expansion. Circuses of innuendos were allowed to go on. Mr. Kendricks, a loving and caring man, was made out to look like a sneaky, lying monster. His longtime dreams and his devotion to better children's education were twisted to pure self-motivated. Accusations and hearsays were taken as fact, and decisions were made on that. One of the board members looked so totally oblivious to any of the defense and even mentioned that he had to drive Rinaldi and did not want a school in that area. I thought his job was to represent the people. Mr. Kendrick had asked us to keep a Christ-like attitude during these proceedings. We sat back passively throughout all of this, even to the point of not defending ourselves. I went through the LA Unified School District. I wanted better for my children. When my oldest child left Hillcrest, she ended up at Poly High School. Her high school experience involved daily harassment, constant exposures to gangs and drugs. Our main goal was to just get her out of there as soon as possible, so survival should not be higher education. LA has expanded unbelievably. In my neighborhood, we get to look forward to the newest wrecking yards, storage facilities, and the latest landfill they have plans for. What makes some people think that they somehow live in a village when they are actually part of a big city? LA cityhood does not mean that some areas have to meet all of the needs of all of the people. The needs of the people need to be met in all of the areas. In my neighborhood, we would embrace the school. The sound of children playing would be a welcomed treat over planes, trains, and the constant sound of a power plant trying to meet the ever-growing demand for power. During these proceedings, I've heard a whole lot of selfishness with absolutely no regards to what's best for children or meeting the needs of our city. Rinaldi Street is a 4-lane street, not a little side street. Every 4-lane street running parallel to Rinaldi all the way down to Ventura Boulevard carries much more traffic than Rinaldi does. It was not too much to ask that these children have a nice campus and not have to be confined to classrooms. It would have been great to eventually see more children be able to have the same supportive school experience that my children had at Hillcrest. Instead, you have imposed working hours on them that are totally impossible.
Thank you,
The
ma'am.
very right for these kids to assemble after school have been taken away from them. You need to evaluate the motives behind all this and make right this wrong.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Mark Campbell. I'm a
Mr.
resident.
Campbell, before you begin, let me again ask for the cooperation of all the speakers to keep your comments to a minute. Please, no more than 2. We have a lot of speakers here this morning, and unless we're prepared to order dinner, We need to keep it as brief as possible. Please not be too repetitive of what prior speakers have said. Thank you.
I will do my very best. Thank you. I just want to make very clear to the City Council what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with two issues. The first is whether Hillcrest should be allowed to expand to a campus on the west side of Shoshone Street in Rinaldi. The second issue, and the more important issue, which is the one most parents are speaking about here today, is whether Hillcrest should be allowed to operate like all other schools, whether Hillcrest should be allowed to have evening events, to have open houses, to have sporting activities. The current conditional use permit prohibits that. There are parents who cannot make open houses, who cannot see their children perform, and who are missing out on their children's lives because of the restrictive nature of the conditional use permit. Currently, activities must begin at 5 o'clock. Most parents like myself who work outside of the San Fernando Valley are not able to attend. Parents who work cannot attend open houses and school performances, and this is disturbing. When you look around all of the schools in the valley, the public schools and other private schools, and they're allowed to have evening events. They're allowed to have events as late as 9:30 at night. On May 10th of this year, Mr. Smith came into my home and spoke to my families of Hillcrest Christian School, and promised and assured me that he was for this project. He promised and assured me he would do whatever he could to make this work. And ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, I just plead with you, if you put aside the expansion project, but just look at the issue of the conditional use permit and the restrictions that is placing on the families and the students and the communities, and I just plead with you to look at that carefully and closely before you make any decision. Thank you.
Lisa DeLuca. I'm a parent and a board member of Hillcrest Christian School. I'm a single parent, and just like everyone else has said, I've faxed you all letters. As a single parent, I work, I support my household, but I give up my vacation time to attend my daughter's school events so that I can be there before 5 o'clock. I really am supposed to work till 6, but I do take those hours so I can be involved in my daughter's future. This is for the kids. And in society, it has been proven that if parents are involved in their children's lives, they will become better citizens of this city. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brenda Miner, and I am speaking as a neighbor and parent of Hillcrest in favor of the expansion proposal. I did not fax letters. I'm too busy doing homework with my child that has a brain injury to fax letters. But I'm here today because I believe this is an important issue. My daughter did attend school at LA Unified, where they do not have a program for children with learning disabilities. They just make modifications in the work for them. I moved my child to Hillcrest because of the program that actually addresses her disabilities and teaches her how to overcome them. If Hillcrest is allowed to expand, there will be more spots at Hillcrest for other children with special needs and learning disabilities in our community. One other issue, on the issue of hours of operation, many neighbors spoke at the Van Nuys hearing regarding their approval of Hillcrest as it operates currently. Their concerns, as they stated it, were not with current operating hours, which were acceptable prior to limiting our hours, but were only directed at the expansion of our campus. So if not considered for expansion, I wish that you would please reinstate all of our previous operating hours so our children may have a full curriculum not limited beyond that of other public and private schools. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Green. I am a third grade teacher at Hillcrest Christian School, and I love Hillcrest. I love the people there, I love the students, and even more, I love what the school stands for. And the school stands for turning out good citizens, and that's what we're doing. We have expected training results that the students will demonstrate reverence for Christ, respect for authority in others and themselves, and take responsibility for their personal actions and words. These are the kind of students that Hillcrest is turning out, responsible citizens of the neighborhood. One thing that I would like to mention is, as the restrictions stand now, we could not have had the funeral on campus of Hillcrest for the student We just can't operate with such restrictions and meet the needs of the students, meet the needs of the parents. I just want to read one letter that one of my children wrote. It says, "Why is Hillcrest important to me? I think Hillcrest is a very good school because they have great teachers." Now, I did not tell her to write that, but I agree. "They are never mean, and I think I'm the happiest kid to be in a safe school like Hillcrest. Hillcrest rocks." This is from a third grader, and I have several other letters to turn in. Thank you for your consideration, and may God bless each and every one of you.
Good morning, members of the council. Thank you for your time. My name is Ralph Schaefer. For over 25 years, I've been a supporter of the Christian school and the church. All three of my children successfully attended Hillcrest Christian School, and now two of them work for the city of Los Angeles in various responsibilities. They got a God-fearing education and a good understanding of what needs to be done. I ask you to allow the school to continue to operate under the original conditional use permits and remove the restrictions that are now hamstringing the school and its ability to have after-hours, Saturday, Friday evening events. These hurt our kids. They hurt the neighborhood. I am personally aware that Hillcrest Christian School in the past has allowed multiple community events to transpire on their property. From the LAPD events to different parade activities to different speech tournaments to different special events. These are all now seriously curtailed. I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you to allow Hillcrest Christian School to have the same hours of operation and privileges as other Christian schools, non-Christian schools, public schools within the San Fernando Valley. I respectfully submit this and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let me call the final cards who were submitted in support of this. That will be Hal Long, Susan Cox, and Susan Tipton's general comment.
Hello, my name is James Dieter, and I'm a teacher at Hillcrest Christian School. I teach in the middle school with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And it is my privilege to be able to share with them the Christian character and to build that within them. My son also graduated from Hillcrest Christian School and is involved and went to Christian college and is getting ready to go out into the mission field. That's the kind of characters we want to have at our school and what we try to develop Christian character within them. Unfortunately, in our middle school, we do not have enough spots open in our high school to send those students on. Those students that we are developing in those characters are going to have to be turned away from our school if we don't have an expansion, and that would be a shame. I would just ask the council to consider Hillcrest Christian School and their expansion, and that allow the Lord to be able to work through them in their lives. Thank you.
Members of the council, my name is Hal Long. I'm an attorney. I represent Hillcrest Christian School. Our school's position was sent to your office by my correspondence last Friday. My statement to you today is very short. Today, you've heard all of the parents and supporters of Hillcrest Christian School talking about one issue. That issue is hours of operation and activities. Respectfully, that is the issue at minimum we'd like you to consider here today. What I would like you to do is look to two things. In my letter to you last Friday, exhibit number 3, I gave you what I would ask you to consider as a proposal for operating hours and special events. It's a condition 15 and condition 40. Exhibit number 4 is the same conditions as proposed by the Associate Zoning Administrator. What we all sometimes seem to forget is the Associate Zoning Administrator spent hundreds of hours on this and recommended operating conditions and special events. If you do not accept our proposed operating hours and special events, Exhibit 3 to my letter, then please, how can you go wrong by simply accepting what our zoning administrator said would be operating conditions that would be acceptable to the city, would completely mitigate and deal with all the needs of the city? It is condition 14 and condition 40. Those two things, as recommended by the zoning administrator, would give this school, these parents, and these kids the ability to operate like a normal school. That's what we're asking you to do. We respectfully submit that. And if you needed this, I'm sorry, I apologize, I didn't have a bunch of copies. It's on your correspondence. I will leave this with the clerk in case you want to look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did Susan Cox want to speak? If not, let me now turn to the cards that were submitted either for general comments or in opposition. Susan Tipton, Robert Ogg, Sue Ogg, Phyllis Kittner. Could you please line up as well and begin speaking? Again, please come forward.
There's someone here who wants to yield time to me. Can she come up and do that first?
Certainly.
My name is Phyllis Kittner, and I'm a resident of Granada Hills, and I yield my time to Susan Kittner. I just want to say that I agree with the findings of the Plum Committee, and I oppose the expansion.
All right. Please begin.
Thank you. My name is Susan Tipton. I live at 11955 Nugent Drive, Granada Hills. First, I want to say I represent a neighborhood organization called NOPE, Neighbors Who Oppose the Planned Expansion. And our first order of our main goal is to protect the safety, character, and well-being of our neighborhood. The current conditional use permit that Hillcrest has does protect our community. In our December 3rd proposal, we conceded extra hours of operation so Hillcrest can meet certain needs with a minimal impact on the community. Any hours beyond those already proposed will encroach upon the community's evening and weekend quietude. During the past 15 months, the school's administration has been resourceful and able to secure alternate sites for late evening and weekend activities. We are confident that they can continue to do so. Mr. Kendrick says that they want to return to their previous level of operation. Unfortunately, during that time, no regard for the welfare of the community was evident from Hillcrest. They were noisy on the field, at pickup time, and at evening outdoor gatherings. The constant activity at all hours, 7 days a week, was disruptive to the quiet nature of the neighborhood. Their carpooling still causes serious traffic and safety concerns, and a clearly defined CUP is our only protection. This school cannot be trusted. At the school's last-minute request, our leadership group spent many hours at a great inconvenience and effort just prior to and through the Thanksgiving holiday to reach a consensus that addressed Hillcrest's requested modifications. We did so in good faith, in a very good faith effort to respond to Mr. Kendrick's appeal to us that he wanted to build trust and goodwill with the community. Yet at the Plum hearing, it was clear that the school's intention was wholly self-serving, with zero regard for the goodwill and trust in the community. Their actions showed complete disregard for our efforts when they said that their offer to withdraw the expansion was predicated on the approval of their entire list of modifications and not what the community had agreed upon. On February 28, 2002, the City Planning Commission directed Hillcrest to get into immediate compliance with their CUP. You see, their previous level of operation...
Ms. Tipton, I'm going to ask you to conclude. You've had 3 minutes for unless others are going to yield.
I have extra time. Didn't I have that time?
No, there's 1 minute for each, and I've given you 3 already.
Oh, I thought we had 3 minutes.
Because of the numbers of speakers, we've tried to shorten it down to 1. So could you either conclude unless someone else wants to yield to you?
I'm Robert Kittner, Granada Hills. I yield my time
All
to
right.
Susan.
Thank you.
Okay, so Hillcrest was Hillcrest was ordered to get into immediate compliance with their CUP. Their previous level of operation was completely in violation of the conditions of their CUP, and they are still in violation of their CUP, and I'd like to submit a log of their violations that have occurred since the Planning Commission hearing until the Plum hearing. I have that here for you. They were not in compliance with their hours of operation and other conditions until 6 months later after being cited by Building and Safety. Throughout this process, the school has given the community false hope that they would address the traffic congestion and safety issues that impact the community on a daily basis. We've seen no evidence of this at all. The community listened to the school's needs, and we responded to them. Our practical and generous concessions were accepted by the Plum Committee on December 3rd. We understood that the Hillcrest administrators put themselves in a bad situation, and we were willing to help, but not to compromise the needs of the community. They apparently are still not satisfied with the community's concessions, even though the recommended modifications will afford the school more hours of operation than they are currently permitted. Thank you.
Thank you.
And who do I give this to?
The sergeant will pick that up. There's coming.
Excuse me.
Mr. Ogg?
Yes, my name is Robert Ogg, live at 11986 Shoshone Avenue in Granada Hills. Have just a couple of comments. Hillcrest, by their own statement, has been providing an excellent education under the existing CUPs, which have been in existence since 1996. What has changed? This has always been a land use issue from the very start of when they wanted to expand. 2 weeks ago, Hillcrest agreed at the Plum Committee meeting to accept the concessions made by the neighborhood group. They were offered the opportunity to rebut at that time, but they ended up accepting. You have the recommendation to the Plum Committee. We feel the concessions made were very generous. What has changed with the last 2 weeks? Thank you.
The final speaker cards submitted were Sue Ogg, Joy Ming, and Deborah Piotrowski.
Good morning. I'm Sue Ogg. I live on Shoshone 11986. I'm a retired public school teacher, both elementary and secondary. I'm now a part-time public school coordinator. Hillcrest states that they want to operate the same way as any other school. The schools where I've been before and where I am now are operating under the conditions, under the hours that NOPE proposes for Hillcrest, or less hours. Hillcrest has been denied expansion as proposed by the Planning Commission and by Plum, and most of the majority of the community would agree to the previous recommendations of NOPE and no more than that. We community members have spent a lot of time trying to figure out what would be best for the community as well as what would be best for the school. Please don't allow Hillcrest any further latitude with their CUPs, and please help us to prepare to keep the character of our semi-rural neighborhood, and we thank you for all of your help.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joy Ming, 17968 Mayerling Street, Granada Hills. I'd like to begin by thanking Councilman Smith and this full council, because I know you've probably endured numerous emails from me, and I'm Joy, the one that's been sending you all these letters. First of all, I realize that Hillcrest is a school. I have children. They go to private school and public school. I know that this is a land use issue. I know this is not an issue whether they're a school or good or bad or who they are. This is a land use issue. The current CUP was violated for years. We didn't know they were in violation because as a community we kind of put up with what was going on until we discovered there was actually a CUP, and that's when there was an uproar in the community, and that's why all of a sudden there was such opposition to their expansion. We are a reasonable community. They came to us at the last minute in November, asked us if we could please work with them. That was the first time they reached out to us since last year, the first time, and we said, great, you want to build trust? We do too. Let's work. We worked furiously for 2 weeks, and Mr. Smith is aware of this. Was very last minute. We worked through the holidays. We came up with something. We thought it was very nice. It was very generous because right now, you know, they wanted more. We said, what do you need? They said, we need this, this, this. We said, okay, that's reasonable. You need Saturdays for certain things? Okay. You need parking for certain things? Okay. We thought we were being very generous, and now we found out at Plum that no, that's not enough. We want more. So now we're sort of, you know, we proposed what we proposed at Plum, thinking it was very fair, and I guess to end this is that we really feel that to protect the community and to give them what they want is what's reasonable, what this whole city council is about, trying to find consensus, and we think it's a very fair deal, what we've proposed at Plum and what Plum has agreed to. So I hope you all support the Plum recommendation, and again, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Piotrowski will be the final speaker.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Petrosco. I live at 17736 Leahy Avenue in Granada Hills. About I don't know, maybe a half a mile away from the school. First of all, I want to say that I support Christian schools. I am a Christian. I believe in good Christian education and the values that Hillcrest teaches. But to reiterate what one of the other speakers says, I don't think this is a religious issue. This is a land use issue. And I heard some inconsistencies today, some inaccuracies today in earlier testimony. I've thrown away what I wanted to say, and I want to address those inaccuracies. And the first thing I want to say is in defense of Mr. Smith. Not that he needs my defense, but I heard him, while I did not hear the exact words, the implication was that Mr. Smith lied to his constituents when he was running for office and said he would support the school and that's why he got elected. I want to say that I went to several public forums and heard Mr. Smith say that he was basically in agreement with the expansion of the school, but that he had some concerns and he felt that they needed to be addressed before he could fully support one way or the other, and that's why I voted for him. So I don't know that it's entirely fair to say that he misled the voting public. I think he was very fair in what he said to the voting public. Secondly, I heard somebody say that the Plum overturn the zoning administrator or the zoning commission, and that's not what they did either. The zoning administrator and the zoning commission voted for expansion for the CUPs with, with 160 conditions. They appealed that to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, who threw everything out. I would ask that you take a look at what Plum. They didn't throw everything out. They denied their application for the expansion, and they modified the conditional use permits, which, by the way, while the school said they'd never received complaints in 25 years from the community, I would like to point out that many in the community were not even aware that there were conditional uses on that land. If they had known, they would have complained. And parents, we heard testimony at the zoning commission of parents who said they'd call the school to complain about actions of students outside of school, and were told that the school couldn't do anything about those students. So I don't know what complaints would have done. I would I would really ask the council to approve the Plum recommendation as it's brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you. That now concludes the public hearing on this matter, and let me turn for council discussion to be led by Councilmember Reyes, the chair of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I'm sorry. Yes, sir? The two people who've just stood up, I'll allow you 1 minute more each, but I did not have a card here, so just come to this microphone, please identify yourself, and that will be the final two speakers.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the council. My name is Wade Hunter. I'm the president of the North Valley Coalition. We represent over 3,000 homes in the area through our membership and outreach programs. That's in Granada Hills. We respectfully ask that you deny their appeal for their expansion of the West Campus. They've created a nuisance and a hazard with their traffic in our community. They've failed to comply with the conditions of their existing conditional use permit, and we feel that just setting more conditions doesn't do anything. They will do the same thing again. We attended the Plum hearing, and at that time we were reassured that NOPE, which is the local organization in the area of the school, that their recommendations would be brought forward to the council, and which I take to be under number 5, which is to amend their existing conditional use permit. So again, we support denying the appeal, and we support resolving item 5, resolving to grant the impart the changes in the conditional use permit. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Scott Manat. I'm a resident of Granada Hills. The Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council, at a duly noticed and convened special meeting on April 4th, heard presentations regarding the proposed expansion of Hillcrest Christian School. The presentation from Hillcrest included its proposed change in lure limitations. The community opposition included documentation of violation of hours, enrollment, operation of traffic, and other provisional use stipulations. The vote of our quorum was against the school expansion. Although the school has not asked to meet with us since that time, we understand a proposal prepared by another neighborhood organization during discussions with the school was presented to the City Council Plum Committee on December 3rd and was approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And this concludes public comment for item number 2 on today's agenda. We now turn to council discussion. Let's hear first from the chair of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. Colleagues, I stand to support the Plum report, and I understand that Councilmember Smith has some adjustments in the hours as well. But colleagues, this is one of those projects that started many years ago. And Councilmember Smith, at that time, was the Chief of Staff of then Plum Chair Hal Burnson. So it's not like he didn't know what was happening in this neighborhood, didn't know what was happening with this process. So as we have been working together in trying to find that win-win, I saw him go into different stages, where at first as a candidate, as has been said in public, he did take some heat for putting himself in a position where he would not make a decision one way or the other, but to support the expansion in the school. That was the tendency. Commitments weren't made, but that was the tendency. And I saw his staff, Mr. Smith, Councilman Smith, actually go through the process and try to engage the community, work through the holidays, and for whatever reason, was not getting the kind of response from the school to move to a different level. And so there was a sense of frustration. There was a sense of, where do we go now? And as an elected official, he's taken the necessary steps to move this project to another level. Now, I don't believe anyone in this room, especially around this horseshoe, is against school, is against education. That is not the message here, because this is a land use issue. But I rise to support Councilman Smith because I felt that he was pushing in the direction that spoke to consensus building, that spoke to fairness, and laid out the best conditions possible given the kind of responses that was available to him and his office. So when you work through the holidays and when you put in this kind of analysis, I believe where we're at today is the best we can do for the moment. I also want to take this time to thank the planning staff. As someone mentioned, hundreds if not thousands of hours are spent in this process, evaluating the IR report, going through the hearings, going through the commission, the zoning administrator's process. This takes a lot of work. Thousands of hours have been invested in this project. And I know that with the stewardship of Mr. Smith, council member, that we'll be able to take this project to a different level if we have the kind of give and take and cooperation that speaks to the wellness of the whole community. For that reason, I encourage my colleagues to support Councilmember Smith in his decision and await his recommendations for the changing of the hours. Thank you.
Mr. Cardenas.
I'd like to, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to bring a little bit of perspective about something that I saw with my own eyes in the Planning Committee. And it's relative to the administration of this school. In that Planning Committee, I saw the way things were going, and I saw that negotiations pretty much had broken down, etc. And Mr. Smith was there trying to mediate and moderate the situation. People in opposition to the school's expansion or changes were there. School administration was there. Their attorney who spoke a few minutes ago was there. And toward the end of that committee, I made it abundantly clear that that committee, that I was going to be willing to move the committee, that we postpone action to allow the school's administration to continue to try to dialogue and try to figure out a way to improve their situation. And I said it more than once. And the lawyer in the administration looked me in the eye and said, no, thank you. That was very frustrating for me. Subsequent to that, I did speak to Mr. Smith, and he expressed to me that that was the kind of scenario that has been repeating itself in this situation that has caused him great frustration. But the fact of the matter is, what I saw with my own eyes isn't the fact that Mr. Smith, as one or two people mentioned at the podium and attacked his character and said basically that he lied. Mr. Smith did not lie. Mr. Smith has been fully engaged in the process, the legal process that all parties need to apply themselves to. And unfortunately, the administration and their lawyer for the school chose, before my own eyes, not to continue to try to improve their situation. That was very disappointing to me, because I would like to see the school have more flexibility. I would like to see the school have the ability to run more like a normal campus. Right now, the restrictions, in my personal opinion, are kind of tight. But the fact of the matter is, that's what we were doing in that committee, deliberating, trying to figure it out, trying to be fair. This is a secular process. This is a process with human rules and regulations. Nothing more, nothing less. And in that process, one particular party, before my own eyes, chose not to apply themselves, in my personal opinion, to the fullest degree they should have and could have for their constituents, which are these children. And I say once again, I know for a fact that Mr. Smith has been losing sleep over this issue. And I don't think he's been losing sleep when it comes to votes. I don't think he's been losing, because I know Mr. Smith. He's losing sleep because he would like to see this resolved in a way that is respectable and amicable to all parties. I would like to see that happen. If I had it my way, I would say, let's give the school some more hours. Let's give them some more flexibility. But you know what? That's between you, the school, the community, and Mr. Smith to work on those details. It's unfortunate that you turned down that opportunity when I expressed it to you very clearly, and you respectfully said, no, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I want to tell you what it was like for me sitting with my colleagues, Mr. Reyes and Mr. Cardenas, at the Plum Committee the other week. I mean, we were right up at the deadline, and at that deadline, and that was actually, that was, I think that's what the Pentagon has called the mother of all Plum Committee hearings. I mean, that one went on and on and on. I don't think we got out till 6:30 that night, my understanding was that there'd been a resolution, that there'd been a compromise, and that both sides had given. And I know how hard the council office and Mr. Smith in particular had worked on that. And then to see that compromise disintegrate at the 11th hour was really a very distressing thing for all of us who want to accomplish things along the lines of those compromises in our own districts. I mean, that's why we run for office. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And I saw Mr. Smith there. I know how disappointed he was, because I know how hard he worked and how much effort you put into that over the past several months. In addition, we were facing the fact that the commission, which the appeal was taken from, the North Valley Area Planning Commission, had denied the appeal to begin with, and that was weighing on us. We very much wanted to approve a compromise, and Mr. Cardenas is correct that he asked the applicants here if they wanted more time to try to seek a compromise, because that's not just the way Mr. Smith operates, that's the way the rest of us operate. That's what we want to see. And it was very disappointing to see that that didn't happen. Mr. Smith, I have a lot of admiration for you and your office in terms of how you tried to work here on behalf of the entire community that you represent, all the different interests. I'm confident that you did your very best and that you indeed brought everyone together, and I'm disappointed that that compromise unfortunately fell apart and wasn't what we and you had the opportunity to approve at the end of the day. So thank you, Mr. Smith, and thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, members of the council, I think we all eventually have to deal with one of these gut-wrenching issues that you try and find the right thing to do, the respectful thing to do, to serve as best you can all the parties involved. To Mr. Campbell and others, that I said during the campaign, I made very clear, I support Hillcrest. I think Hillcrest is a wonderful addition to our community. I supported the expansion. I supported everything you had going for you at that time. Nothing has changed, in my opinion, at Hillcrest. And I want to say something that I never said throughout the campaign, nor through all this process. I think it's important to say now. For those of you that don't know me well, my children went to Hillcrest School. My wife and my children and I went to Hillcrest Christian Church when it was still a church in our community. I truly love that facility, and I think it's a wonderful facility. I never said that before because I didn't want to distract from the issues at hand. And the issues at hand are the land use issues, which Mr. Reyes so well pointed out, and my friends and my colleagues, Mr. Cardenas and Mr. Weiss. I thank them for their comments. I have agonized over this through the summer. I agonized because Hillcrest came to me early in the summer and said, we're not going to continue the expansion. Even though you've gone out there and said you will support it, we're not going to continue, but don't tell anybody. We don't want to talk about it right now. We wanted to think about this. And so I had to sit on that through the summer. And we tried to find ways when they finally did tell the community that we could all come together and find a consensus that everybody believed was the best thing for Hillcrest and the community. And we were never able to achieve that, unfortunately. On Veterans Day, holiday, I brought Hillcrest into my office with the community and said, let's find a way to get consensus on what remains, and that is the issues of operation on the East Campus. Hillcrest proposed 5 things. 5 things. The community eventually agreed to 3 of the 5, said no to 1, and said we'll go halfway on the other. The most contentious issue and the most important issue is the hours of operation. When we went to the Plum Committee last week, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, I said very clearly, I thought what the community did, NOPE did, was a reasonable process. They thought it out. It was well-reasoned. It was fair. It was equitable. I agreed with most of what they proposed. But I did have a problem with the hours of operation. I really felt there needed to be more give to the school. I really felt that we needed to give them a little more operational hours. And I was as crestfallen as I have ever been in my public life when I sat next to the representative to Hillcrest Church, Hillcrest School, in that committee, and Mr. Cardenas said point blank, will you continue to negotiate this on those hours of operation? And Hillcrest said no. That closed the doors, ladies and gentlemen. All of you here that are supporting Hillcrest School, God bless you, but they closed the door themselves. And it's really tragic. But I didn't quit at that. I actually went back afterwards, and as late as this Friday night, am I not telling the truth, Mr. Kendrick? I called you Friday night and said, will you negotiate this weekend? And you said yes. Is that correct? Yes. Mr. Kendrick said he would negotiate. He would still talk. I sat in Pastor Dudley's office for 2 hours last Thursday trying to find some way that we could all go forward and have a consensus that would work. And I talked to the community on Friday night, and they said, let us think about it over the weekend. And they came back and said, you know, we are so far down this road, we don't think we can give any more. We gave up the 3 issues totally. We went halfway on the other, and the 4th one we just can't agree on altogether. I said, I respect that. And so members of the council, it is really, truly unfortunate that I stand here and say today, we've got a consensus that came out of Plum. I'm going to make a couple minor recommendations for an additional few hours here in just a moment. But I think we've come as far as we can go. It is truly tragic that we've come to this point because I really think that the best way for communities to deal with their problems is to continue to talk. And it's unfortunate that opportunity did not exist for us as we got to this point. Members of the council, I would like to recommend a few additional hour changes that I think are equitable, that I think at least bring back some of the issues that I had concerns about with dealing with hours. And so on item number 15, number A, talking about school hours Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. during normal September through June school year. Strike the next sentence, 8 a.m. on Saturday, 8 a.m. until noon, for the purpose of entrance and placement testing for Hillcrest and prospective students only, up to a maximum of 8 times a year. And then add in the sentence from 9:30 for Saturday, from 9:30 to 3 p.m., allow activities at the school activities not concurrent with any other outdoor activities that may take place. Secondly, on athletic events, item number B, strike the sentence for girls and boys varsity basketball teams not to exceed 8 and leave the 8 nights a year per team, and then strike basketball season approximately early January through February. This removes the time frame so that whenever they have the athletic events, they can take place. And finally, add number F, which will be that on Saturday, 10 times a year, weddings or funerals from 9:30 to 3 may be still allowed at the facility. I think those were equitable. That gives them back some of the issues that they had. It's not all, certainly. I have heard people say that there are schools that have better operation hours. Yes, there are, and one of the problems we have probably is we look at each one of these independently and differently. Maybe we need to have a standard set of requirements from the future on, and that you can only make minor tweaks from, but this school does have some onerous requirements. But you have to understand that as we stand here today, you have only what was approved in 1996. In 1996, the hours of operation were 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday. And so many of you said to us today, you want to go back and have what you had. Well, I got news for you. What you had is more restrictive than what we are approving today. You don't want to go back to 1996. What you're getting today is much more lenient than you have right now today. The problem is nobody, and I believe Mr. Kendrick when he tells me this, that you really didn't realize what the operational constraints on the school were already. I think everybody just kind of forgot about it. It went away. The community didn't know, and what Mr. Kendrick may have known or forgotten is almost irrelevant. You were operating essentially illegally on many of the things you did. And I think many of the things you did were wonderful for the community. The Dinner for Solid, the police department, all these things, wonderful. They were technically illegal. And so when you say here today that you want to go back, you really don't. This is much more lenient for you, and I think the additions I just made help you out a little bit. With that, members of the council, I ask your support of my amendments, reject the appeal, and move the Plum Committee appointment with my amendments. Thank you.
Is there any objection to those amendments? Seeing none, we'll consider item number 2 as amended, or the Plum Committee report as amended. Ms. Hahn, followed by Mr. Zine.
Well, what I was going to say, thank you, Mr. President, members, what I was going to say was I was wondering if there was still room for a compromise, and sounds like, Councilman Smith, you've actually proposed some things that will actually loosen it. And I think we're all feeling the same thing here today, and I want all of you who have come down here to testify to know that we were all paying very close attention to this. We were all listening to this. Usually when there's an issue in one of our colleagues' districts, we pretty much defer to them, and we know that they know best. They've worked with the issues, but I had a particular interest in this because I used to be a teacher at a private Christian school. My kids have also gone to both private Christian schools as well as public schools, so I have a particular interest in this and want you to know that I can't speak for my colleagues, but know that I was personally paying great attention to this issue. In fact, walked across the Horseshoe to talk with Mr. Smith to find out what some of the background is, what some of the issues were, and certainly the testimony that was given today by those of you who were teachers, those of you who were parents, those of you who had experiences with not only the church but the school, made the effort to come down here and talk about this. And nothing about our decision today really is about the fact that you are a Christian school, or that in fact you do incredible things. And I, for one, am hugely supportive of all schools, of all parochial backgrounds, of public or private, and particularly in these tough fiscal times that the city of Los Angeles is going through. I am particularly a big supporter of school activities, of after-school activities, of weekend activities, because I believe with all my heart that the best prevention of crime, that the best prevention of kids joining gangs is good schools and good positive activities. We can't just keep telling our kids to say no when we don't give them an opportunity for hours when they can actually participate in good activities that shape them. And the touching story from the mother whose daughter died, and to hear about these kids planning the memorial service, I mean, that's, you really are growing up a generation of kids who I think will have enormous positive impacts on our society, and we do care about that here. But clearly, I think what was most frustrating to me, and I was not in the Plum Committee, but most frustrating to me was listening to those members who were in Plum, and certainly listening to Councilman Smith's agony, that at some point the talks broke down. And I got to tell you, We are not adverse in our society right now to talks breaking down. We've got a grocery strike going on where talks have broken down. We had an MTA strike that was leaving thousands of people stranded. It took a couple of our own council members and the mayor to say, no, get back to the table and talk. We had a breakdown in Sacramento last week. And from reading some of the background information, it looked like our First Lady, Maria Shriver, said, no, get back in there and keep talking. And I guess that's where I wish this would have happened. I wish at some point we really were able to say, come on, get back, talk one more time. Don't say no. Don't close the door. Because ultimately, the lesson here, unfortunately, is going to be to the kids. The kids are going to know that at some points the adults just quit talking. The adults said no. The adults said, I'm sorry, I can't give anymore. And of all the things that you teach from 8 to 5, of all the things you teach in after school and on the weekends, I think all those lessons really are wiped out by the fact that the adults could not say one more time, we'll give just a little bit more, we'll talk just a little bit longer, we'll meet one more time. And that's what I'm frustrated about. But I will certainly support this compromise. But hopefully, maybe this can be kept open and there's a point of review. There's a point when maybe the community and the school can come back together and everybody can agree on some things in the future. But I certainly appreciate, Greg, your long-suffering patience on this issue, and the fact that you weren't willing to give up until it sounded like the door was closed. But no, we do appreciate the school. We do appreciate what you're doing, but we also know that communities, people who live next to schools, have issues that many people don't have, and it's always in what we want to do is to find a compromise so that everybody's happy.
Thank you. Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. To the individual that said we weren't paying attention, my children attended St. Euphrasia, both of my sons, so I'm very familiar with that area. I lived in the Porter Ranch area for many years, and familiar with Rinaldi. I go back to Rinaldi when there was a little curve, and we had a number of fatalities, and I worked LAPD many years, traffic enforcement in that area. The speeding and the tragedy that the mother reflected on where her daughter was killed, there's been a tremendous problem with traffic on Rinaldi as far as speeding violations take place. But as far as the school itself, I'm familiar with the school and how it's expanded over the years. I'm familiar with that entire area. And those of us who are familiar with that area know the 118 freeway didn't exist a few years ago, and now it exists in a tremendous amount of traffic. And the continuing development along Rinaldi, further west on through DeSoto, and the population continues to grow. I support the school. Councilmember Smith wants to make it work, and that's what we all want to do is make it work. But we have a thing called neighborhood councils in this city, and we're trying to reform government to be responsive to neighborhoods. And I would much rather see the children at your school during class and after school at the activities than see them down at the video arcade or hanging on the street corners with graffiti in the businesses and causing vandalism to the community. You obviously have a supportive group of parents and good accomplishments in academics at the school, and that's to be acknowledged. But the mix is the problem. How do you mix the continuing progress of education, the continuing explosion of the population of students with the needs of the community? How do they blend together? And that's, I think, what Mr. Smith tried to make happen. I didn't attend the Plum meetings, but I'm well familiar with that area, well familiar with the population explosion. That's one reason why Hillcrest is so popular, is because we put more families up there. And those families that are buying those S&S homes, the new Walmart that's up there in Porter Ranch area, more people up there, more population, but we really haven't made accommodations for the education. We heard earlier about the LA Unified School District. They're going to build 168 schools. We don't know where they're going to be built. We already have a facility here. But how do we make that blend with the community? And if you live next to the school, you want to have a quality of life, and that's what we're all about in this council. We want to establish a quality of life. I'm going to support Councilmember Smith in this endeavor. I have personal knowledge of the location, personal knowledge of that community, and I receive the emails, and I receive the phone calls, I receive the faxes from the individuals in that community who are concerned about it. And I think there has to be a meeting of the minds to say we want to provide positive education, we want to provide quality of life for the community, and they can work together, not on a confrontational basis, but in a positive fashion. The school and the church have been there for many years. The community is growing. And when people move into that community and the traffic congestion gets worse every single day, along Rinaldi, along the 118. We have to find a mix that blends together and makes it work instead of having the adversarial role. I'm not an adversarial role to this project, but I'm going to support my colleague. He's the one who's tried to bring the parties together. The council members deliberated on it. So I voice my support for the parents, the students, the administration of the school, continue the progress. But politics, and I've said before, is compromise. You can't get everything you want, and politics is compromise for the best for the community and for the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Other council members wishing to be heard? If not, we have the amended committee report before us for consideration. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith, please. Next item.
Next item, item number 29, called special by Council Member Parks, and with a request to take item number 130, 131, and 132 together.
Yes, Mr. Parks, did you wish to speak before members of the public?
Yes, first I'd like to bring the members of the public, although this has been heard at committee, we have with us today Ms. Mona Fields, President of the Board of Trustees of the Community College, the Chancellor of the LA Community College, Mr. Drummond, also Mr. Warren Furutani, a member of the board. We'd like to ask them to come up. And we also have a couple of the students here. And I'd like to ask if we could have a 10-minute hearing so that you could hear from them about some of the issues that were dealt with during the committee.
Okay, let's set the clock for 10 minutes, and doing some quick math here, we're looking at 2 minutes or less for each of the speakers. But our two colleagues from the Community College Board first, Ms. Field.
Thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you for making the time for this presentation. We know you have a great deal of pressing business, and we also know that it has not traditionally been the role of a council to show this level of support for community colleges. But we are very grateful because, of course, your constituents are our constituents, and our students are the people who live in your districts and work in your districts, and we appreciate your showing support for their goals and aspirations. I won't ask for a show of hands, but I know for sure that many of the council members have attended community colleges and that you're well aware. There, I know, Tom, Mr. Parks, Antonio, and we know that you understand our important mission and role. I just want to say very briefly that each of the three resolutions has a particular importance to us, and we appreciate your consideration of showing this kind of support for us. All of them are about fairness and getting our fair share. We know you're very concerned right now about the city's fair share in terms of state budget revenues, and in our case, we are very concerned and see that your support could be very helpful to us. And I want to say, too, that one of the resolutions also is about what we would like to see happen for all of higher ed in California, which are predictable and stable fee increases, not this 64% that we saw for our students just this last year. And so, again, if you look at the three, you see that they all are about fairness and access, and our goal is to keep the doors open, and we thank you again for your time.
Mr. Furutani.
Good morning, members of the council. It's a pleasure and always a pleasure to come and address this important body. I want to most of all make the point, though, that the resolutions being brought forward and the attitude that we've run into from all of you at the council is really, I think, an enlightened one. What I mean by that is that we're called community colleges because we're colleges in the communities, and the communities are represented by you in the city of Los Angeles. And really what we want to take this opportunity is to present is not only our particular case, which I know you understand very well, but the issue of higher education has come before you, even though it may not be under your purview in terms of governance. But as we look at the situation statewide, you will see that the attendance and the ability to apply and get enrolled at the UC system is getting harder and harder. The way the system works then is if you don't get into UC, you bump down into CSU. Well, I'm sure you're also finding out at the CSU level level, they are capping enrollment and not are going to bring in new students or applicants. So then what happens in that situation is you bump down to community college. Well, as we have this top-down pressure for community college, we also have the bottom-up pressure, which is once you reach 18, whether you graduate from high school or not, you are welcome to community college. So community college really is the people's college. It's the blue-collar college. It's the place where people come, whether you're in a process of trying to get a new start in life or whether you're going to be transferring to UCLA or UC whatever. The point I'm making is that community college is in the community. I think it's historic to have the support of your body for community college education, and I think it's really clear and important that people now know that community college is not a second-class institution. We're not a high school with ashtrays. We're not someplace that people go because they can't go anywhere else. People come to community college because, doggone it, it makes sense. Thank you.
Mr. Drummond.
Mr. President, distinguished members of the council, I'm Mark Drummond, Chancellor of the Los Angeles Community Colleges. First, I want to thank you for Councilman Parks particularly for expressing these and putting forth these motions and showing us that you're in our corner. In addition to the many of you that have attended and many of you have graduated from community colleges and gone on and where you are now, we also know Rocky Delgadillo, the city attorney, is a graduate on one of our colleges, got an athletic scholarship somewhere else and ended up at Harvard. We know that Lee Baca was a graduate at one of our colleges. Many, many people today and in the past that have been important leaders of this city have been people that have gone through these community colleges. I want to speak just briefly to the one initiative which Councilman Member Parks has put on the before you today, and that's the one about literacy, because it's one that particularly should be on the minds of all of us in Los Angeles. You know, we talk about tidal wave 2. That's the students that are coming to the colleges, the UC, the CSU, and the community colleges. The new wave of people coming to the colleges over the next 4 or 5 years is estimated to be 700,000 people, and we've been trying to get ready for them. But did you know that in addition to those 700,000 people, what's more of a concern to me is as of this very day, there are 900,000 people in the state of California, 900,000 between the age of 18 and 24 that do not have a high school diploma. 900,000 people out there today that don't have a high school diploma, people that lack basic skills, many of them lack literacy. And you know what that means for our economy. 35% of those people are in Los Angeles County. 35% of the 900,000 people between 18 and 24 lacking a high school diploma are in Los Angeles County. So there's a huge burden on all of us. The LA Unified for Adult Ed, the LA County Department of Education, and certainly the community colleges to step up and come up with a new way to solve this problem of community literacy, of illiteracy, I should say, of workplace illiteracy. It's an enormous problem. And every single year that goes by that we don't solve it, we're adding about 40,000 more kids to that pool of 900,000 people. There's about 40,000 kids a year that drop out, stop out, or don't properly get through the high school system. So we're creating an enormous problem for our future. And I think that this is a very good time to put that forward, and it's a very good time for us to focus our efforts on this very issue of literacy and what we're going to do about it, or the lack thereof. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Anthony Isles. I am the chairman of the District Oversight Committee for Prop A and also for Prop AA. I'm also a small business owner in the city, and I'm also the father of a 19-year-old. I am here basically today to support Councilman Parks, the council, and to applaud you for your far-reaching vision. Because regardless of whether or not the issue is controlled by federal or state jurisdiction, every issue that impacts the city of Los Angeles ultimately is a local issue. The reality of it is that the taxpayers have recently voted, and there are billions of dollars currently being spent in the Los Angeles Community College District to bring the facilities up to a 21st century standard, not just on an academic level, environmental level, but also when you look at this project, it actually represents the best of many of the things that this council have endorsed over the last 10 years. I think from my perspective as a small business owner, this project, Prop AA, Prop A, is the most inclusive of small business projects to include small businesses in this area that I've ever seen. Now, it would be a waste for us to put all the efforts into building up these beautiful facilities and put all the money into developing these long-range academic programs, and then have the very population that we aim to serve not be able to access those resources for lack of funding. So I would like to, in closing, commend Councilman Parks for his vision and ask you to support it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Salazar. I am here speaking on behalf of students of community colleges. I am a recent graduate of Los Angeles Valley College and will be beginning UCLA this winter quarter, where I hope to eventually start a career in public policy, actually. I am one of the many products of the community college system. Without the community college system, I really would not have been able to achieve any of my goals and any of my ambitions in terms of continuing my education. So community colleges are very important to me, very dear to my heart. As far as students' everyday struggles, the most apparent one is our struggles just to get classes. Students are scrambling to get classes because there are few offerings now. We're taking night classes, we're compromising our work schedules, we're doing all sorts of things just trying to get this common goal that all of us, all the students in the 108 colleges in the community college system in California, that's our one simple goal, and there just keeps coming obstacles after obstacle in our goal just to graduate. From community colleges, at least at Los Angeles Valley College, I know many students who have had to put off transferring plans, graduation plans, and many times it's just because of one class that's not being offered in one semester, but it's being offered in another one, because the college simply can't afford to offer the classes that they used to. And with the oncoming wave of students coming from the UC system, CSU systems, and high school students that are going to be looking for community colleges, it's only going to get worse trying to fit all these classes into our schedule. Services as well are being lowered at community colleges. Counselors, we're always being told to see counselors before we register for classes, and counselors aren't available. Counselors are being let go left and right because, again, the colleges can't afford to hire new people and to maintain the staff that they have currently. Tutoring services that departments like math and English departments usually offer to students are also being threatened are just basically being threatened, and many students who just with a little bit of tutoring would pass a class that they need to graduate, they're not getting this tutoring because, again, we can't afford to maintain these systems. We can't afford to pay student workers who, we pay student workers to teach people to tutor their fellow students. We're not hiring professional tutors. We're paying our own students to teach us. In terms of fee increases, that's obviously a huge obstacle in students going to school. It was hard enough at $11 a unit. I would like to remind the council that community colleges were made as a vehicle of access for students who normally would not be able to go to a UC or a CSU. This was supposed to be our place to be able to, for anyone who wants to learn should be able to go to a community college. And again, with the fee increases, it's difficult, and we're closing so many doors. As you'll see in the resolutions, 175,000 students so far are unable to attend because of fee increases.
If I can ask you to conclude, please. We have one more speaker.
So just in finality, I would like to ask the council support for community colleges, and please do remember that community colleges were made to provide access to everyone, to the community, and we're not doing this, and I just ask for your support for the resolutions of community colleges. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is James Brevard. I'm a student at Los Angeles Valley College. I'm also the president of the Associated Student Union. And as a student leader, I felt inclined to come up here and speak to you this afternoon. I want to talk about one program in particular at our school. It's a mentoring program, which I do serve the student body as a peer mentor on our campus. Basically, I want to speak how that program in particular was affected. Last year, I was able to serve on a regular basis eight mentees. unfortunately, due to the budget cuts, they had to reduce the number of mentors at our campus down to 3, serving almost 200 students. So the number of students that I now serve has grown from 8 to 32. And these are students that it's very beneficial to work with a one-on-one basis. These are considered at-risk students. They basically came in behind the 8 ball, and they just need an opportunity. They just need a mentor to work with, to be pointed out to different and necessary resources. And that's my position there. And I just thought it was very important to bring these concerns to this particular board, because we are affected by the budget cuts. There is a number of classes being cut, faculty members being lost. I've personally had to sit on the classroom floor because of the overcrowding. There are a number of schools that can't even afford to offer the winter intersession classes. So in that sense, our school is also serving, a number of students coming from other campuses. And also this combined with the fact that there's basically an extension that they can look forward to graduating, it's become very discouraging, and especially to the at-risk students. So sadly, we're seeing a decline in the number of these students. So I felt that was very necessary to bring that here to the board. And basically what I'm asking the City Council here is to do today is to not only be conscientious of the concerns of the community college students, but to acknowledge our hard work by supporting the resolution presented by the LACCD District Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes public comment on these items. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the speakers, Ms. Field, Mr. Furutani, and also the Chancellor, Mr. Drummond, and the students for being here. And also like to thank Janice Hahn for having this in her committee, in which we heard a great deal of testimony. The thing I think that's most important for us is some of the comments made about the fact that our population for community college is growing while our K through 12 in the near future will be diminishing. But yet, over the last couple of decades, since Prop 98 came into being, the community colleges have been shorted about $2 billion in funding because they do not have the automatic process in which to get additional revenues if their projections on property taxes is off. What I think that as we look at these issues, to know that about half of the students at community colleges are 25 years or older, about a third are over 35 years of age. This process gives the very newest students out of high school and those who want to get a vocation and redirect their lives an opportunity for education. We have seen that just by the state government moving 1 percentage point on the overall allocation of money to the community colleges accounts for almost $500,000 and less funds. We also know that we get a double hit in our community because we have a shortage of dollars, and then we have classes being cut. We've heard stories in which students who really want to be educated have had to go to 2 to 3 schools in order to get the classes that are necessary. So during the recent Education and Neighborhoods Committee, there were 3 motions that came out of that. Item number 130 today deals with establishing that automatic adjustment so that the community colleges will continue to have the 10.9%, and that's supporting AB 1417. Also, to ensure that when community colleges raise their fees, those funds go back into the community college system, and that they can depend on a consistent funding source is also important. And finally, 132 today deals with the fair share of Prop 98 funds, which I mentioned earlier. They've been shorted for over $2 billion over the last decade and a half. So I'd ask for unanimous support on all 4 items today in hopes that we can send a clear message that community colleges are important to us as a city and important to the residents that we represent, and in some instances the only place that many of our residents have an opportunity to obtain a further education.
Mr. Labange.
I stand and I commend Councilman Parks, a fellow Cub from City College, on this issue here. When the remarks were being made, I thought about Barbara Benjamin Cohen, I thought about Milt Davis, I thought about George J. Kelly, I thought about Bob Lott, I thought about Phil Schlesinger. I thought about all the teachers' names that I could remember, Ron Botchin at City College, and there's many more who helped me. And I don't know if I could name you all my teachers from high school other than my English teacher, Burr Hickman, and some of my coaches, but the community college professors are extremely dedicated. And that 900,000 figure that Chancellor Drummond spoke of is a very important figure that I'm going to remember, because that's a gap that's going to hit us later on. I thank you, Mr. Parks, and I thank the community colleges. I know you don't like, I don't like something on Melrose Avenue, but I don't want to talk about that. But this is very good that you bring this forth, Mr. Parks, because we've got to rally the state around our community colleges, because it's the absolute gateway to success is the community college system of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. You didn't throw in Marshall High. You could have thrown that in there, too, because many of the graduates from Marshall go on to community colleges around our area. I have one question. I support the measure. The comment regarding the grade levels, K through 12, I know the school district is on this aggressive program to build new schools, elementary schools and high schools, and if that's not necessary, why are we pursuing that when we could divert dollars and the focus on what we need for the community colleges?
I think basically from the K through 12, although their population is dropping, the placement of the schools are in the wrong places for where the population is. And so we're busing people out of very over-concentrated areas into schools and places where schools primarily exist have less population. So the bond fund is really building schools to reduce the concentration of students and the density and where the growth of the K through 12 population will exist now and in the future. But the overall school system in the LA Unified is dropping while the community college is on a consistent and a sudden rise.
Are there funds there to expand the operations at community colleges?
Well, the funds basically at Prop 98 gives them, I believe, 41% of the funds between the two systems. Community colleges have suffered because there's no automatic adjustment during the school year. So if they contemplate X number of dollars in property taxes and they don't get it, there's no adjustment. So it comes off their next year's budget. There is an automatic adjustment for LA Unified School Districts or K through 12 education.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there members wishing to be heard on these items? If not, I believe we can vote on them concurrently. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. And this is item 29, 130, 131, and 132. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Those are approved. Next item, please. I believe Mr. Garcetti wanted to be recognized.
On item 47, there's actually a technical amendment that we circulated as well, if we can reconsider that, and I was supposed to move the majority report with the personnel report.
Okay. Well, first is a motion for reconsideration of item 47. Let's open the roll on reconsideration. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, item 47 is now back before us. Ms. Misikowski is recused on this item. So let's ask her to excuse herself once again.
I need to make public that my husband and I own a rental property in the city of Los Angeles, and as such, there is a conflict, and so I will recuse myself.
Okay, so as Ms. Misikowski steps aside, item 47 will be back before us. And let me recognize Mr. Garcetti, followed by Mr. Reyes.
I just made a motion to move 47A with the majority and personnel reports.
Okay, and any amendments? 47A. Mr. Reyes.
Just wanted to second his motion.
Okay.
Colleagues, this is an effort that's been evolving over almost 2.5 years. And there are conditions here that really speak to how we eliminate, for the most part, the abuse tools for evicting tenants. And after a lengthy 18-month process of numerous hearings and extensive testimony and documented statistical support, we come forward today with you, for you, to deal with this issue in a manner that is not a stagnant manner, it's an evolving process. We heard in committee the concerns as they affect property owners who essentially, in the context of the whole, would be called mom and pop property owners. And the main point I want to make here is that we are directing the department to report back to the committee in 60 days in coordinating, providing information relative to available low-interest rehabilitation loans and grants to assist our smaller property owners on limited incomes to conduct primary renovation work. We're saying that we need to collaborate with both tenants and property owners to develop and pursue additional incentives for investment and retention affordability of the city's rent-stabilized units through tax incentives, targeted low-interest loan programs, state legislation for insurance discounts for participating owners. So what we're moving on today is to get us to the next level. What we are saying is we need to continue working together in this very complicated issue, but we need to get to the next level. So we're hoping that with the continuous feedback that we hear back in 60 days how this is going to work, and that we'll be revisiting this whole process in a year. The issue really is, how do we start looking at the city as a whole? How do we treat tenants as much as property owners equally? And how do we create a community where we minimize the abuse? That truly is what we want to, that's truly the goal we want to achieve.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we only have the reconsidered for the majority report. I'd like to have the minority report also reconsidered because I have some comments regarding that.
It's all back before us.
It's all before.
Item 47 in its entirety.
Okay. All right. Basically, in the minority report, and I'd like to clear up a couple of things, and maybe it's because I didn't speak very clearly at the committee. I'm in support of the primary renovation, but I think what's the mistake in the majority report is to get rid of evictions on major rehab. Also, from talking to many of the contractors and people who do business as it relates to building housing, in the Rosen report, there's an unrealistic view as to what the cost of major rehab. I also think that we have offered the concerns as it relates to tenants who may have been abused with this system may have been amplified. What we've been able to find is that even in the Rosen report, they only report 45 relocations per year using the evictions with major rehab. We also know that only about 1% or less than 1% of the housing stock in the city of LA is impacted. And it's only in a very concentrated area of the city. So it's not a process that's been used as a citywide issue. We know also that it truly negatively impacts those who are small to medium-sized property owners. In looking at the current process in the city, LA Housing Department, prior to the moratorium, has all the tools and rules and regulations in order to address these issues as it relates to major rehab. We also have a city committee dealing with the city's rent stabilization committee that provides additional assurances for compliance. The significant escalation of tear downs and rebuild in the city has begun to circumvent the whole issue of rehab, and what we've come up with is a net decrease in housing because we've lost 2,100 apartment units over the last 3 years because generally the tear downs are rebuilt in a much smaller unit. We also find that when we do not allow tenants or landowners and developers to get adequate financing to do major rehab, then we overload our REAP program and our slumlord mandates now go into effect. So we're not allowing those who own the land and the property to do what we want them to do, but the city has these onerous processes of REAP and slumlord activities. As you deal with communities much like mine, where there's an older and poor communities, these houses are generally 40 to 50 years old. They've expended the life expectancy of them, and we're going to have some major rehab over the next several years that's going to be mandatory, and landlords have to be given the ability to do that. I have found a universal rejection of the concept of eliminating eviction by major rehab from apartment owners, builders, landlords, developers, investors. And as I mentioned to Dennis Zine today, when I find that VICA in the Valley and owners of small apartments and homes in South Los Angeles agree that this is something that should not occur, I think we should listen. We have in this city disincentives as far as housing and developing. We have the rent stabilization program at 3% max. We have a 50% pass-through. We have a code inspection program. We have a REAP program, a slumlord program. These are just a few of the things that are disincentives for the development communities. And again, when you have a poor community and a community that's deteriorating, much of the 8th District, we don't want additional barriers that will cause developers to come up with another reason not to come into our community. I think what's proposed in the Rosen report, the primary renovation program, is a good program. I think it needs to be put in place, but fine-tuned and evaluated after a year. But I think it goes hand in hand with the issues that we deal with on major rehab and also the capital improvement program, which gives the property owner and landlord the ability to use one of the three depending on how much money they have to invest. And so I think when we look at what the city needs, much as Ms. Gruhl put forth a motion a while back to ask for an overall strategy and a policy, not just the incremental step-by-step that seems to be strangling the housing industry, but also that we need to, as I've asked in the committee for the CAO and the CLA and housing, to look at why is San Bernardino, Ventura, Riverside County exceeding all expectation. The city of LA is basically not reaching what we think should be our expectation. And so these are the kinds of things that I think we need to consider, and what I would hope is that we not move forward on today, that we'd ask this be held over for the early part or when we return from recess, so we can look at these issues as opposed to eliminating something that is beneficial for people who provide the housing stock in our city. And I think we need to listen to them, because without them, we would all be homeless. Thank you.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much. Oh, we hold my time. I think there's a...
Hold this to next week, so till we return in January, about a month, so that we can have many of the council members I talked with have not had an adequate chance to review the report. We just signed off on it today. I know I signed the committee report. Even though I was on the committee, I did not get a chance to review it in the last couple of days. So this is something I would like to have a motion that we continue it for a month.
Is there a second?
Mr. Smith seconds. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Mr. Parks, for your diligence, and all the members of the Housing Community and Economic Development Committee for your good and hard work on this. Colleagues, we've spent a year and a half deliberating this. Many of you who were on the Housing Committee before talked about it. We've talked about it here. It's been 2.5 months since we had this in committee. And I really want to praise both the landlord community as well as the tenant community for your participation. And we insisted in committee, Ms. Gruhl, myself, others insisted that all parties be at the table and the Housing Department work with all parties. And the initial agreement, which didn't please the tenants 100% and didn't please the landlords 100%, but which the minutes reflect both AGLA, the Apartment Owners, California Apartment Owners Association, and also the tenant groups that were there could live with, was the plan that we have moved forward on. And thank you for the initiative on an overall housing policy. This is something that we've been pursuing for the last couple months and putting together some of the initial framework for Mr. Parks. And I'm proud to announce to all of you that some of our initial data for the city of Los Angeles, while one simple answer for San Bernardino and other counties is that they have land that we don't have in LA County. For the first time in our history, our general plan, we met the housing element requirement for our housing units. For the first time ever last year, we actually built the number of units, give or take about 5%, that we are mandated by ourselves to be able to keep up with population growth to build. That's impressive, and 45% of that was affordable, even though, or 40%, somewhere in between 40 and 45%, which is what the housing element also mandated. A few things just to respond to. I think the time, colleagues, what we're talking about today, because there's a lot of talk about this, is 45 units in the city that were official. 45 units in the entire city. We had testimony from different parts of the city where this was happening. But I'd like to think, and I remember talking as well with the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, when they're saying this is only 45 units, we shouldn't be spending much time on it. I fully agree, unless there's something else going on that is more than 45 units out there. And in some ways, the strength of the advocacy seems to confirm that maybe this is a tool sometimes informally used, and this was never envisioned as a way of scaring people out of their apartments. 99% of our landlords are good landlords. But if that 1% is represented by those 45 units, or more likely much more than that, let's say a few hundred, that is something that we should fix while we're adopting a housing policy. We've spent a year and a half doing so, and I think the time to act is now. I'm going to ask if I can do 5 minutes just as the committee chair presenting a report, so if I can have a couple more minutes as this goes down. Let me respond to a few things that have been said. First of all, this is really, if major rehab or the grounds for eviction weren't being used in certain parts of the city, then the elimination of that shouldn't be feared in parts of the city where those statistics don't show it. So for instance, in CD 8, CD 10, CD 13, I have the third poorest district statistically after CD 9 and CD 1. If this isn't being used in those areas, eliminating it shouldn't give us any fear that we're adding anything else to the formula. Secondly, if we look at the moratorium, prior to the moratorium, the tools that existed, and I know that those are good ones that you pointed out, Mr. Parks, rules and regulations to enforce major rehab, we were not doing a very good job of enforcing our re-rental certificates after major rehab. There was no monitoring of our post-rehab rental. And oftentimes, some developers were using the loophole of doing less than 4 units at a time to avoid having to set aside any rehab units for affordable. The part that you mentioned as well about making sure that we look at rehabilitation, that's precisely why I think in the committee we have committed part of our Affordable Housing Trust Fund to help landlords, and landlords should know about this, to be able to rehab affordable units. The knockdowns, the teardowns, the 2,100 units that we lost that I too decry, are not affected by this at all. That happened before we had any changes, before we've implemented this new policy. So compare those 2,100, even if we lost 45 to knocking them down, that's added spur to the economy, that's more construction. So the very same people who are saying we're going to lose money, like the VICA paper, which I respectfully disagree with, said we're going to lose construction jobs, et cetera. You can't have it both ways. Either it's going to be knocked down and those 45 units are reconstructed and there's construction jobs, or they're going to be rehabbed and they're going to be construction jobs there too. But I do agree that demolitions are a concern, and that's why we're looking at the one-year review, which was a suggestion made within the committee from the Landlord Association, and one that I wholeheartedly agree with. I also think that the Housing Department should set some sort of level that we look at, and I'm working with them to make sure that that is there. Right now, only about 0.05% of our units, so in respect, I know when I talked to my friends over at AGLA, they said, let's make it 2%. That would be an increase of 400-fold of what's done right now, and I think that's an unrealistic expectation that we should increase the number of rehab in 1 year by 4,000%. Furthermore, sorry, 40,000%. Furthermore, if we look at the failure right now of existing tenants, to allow existing tenants the ability to properly rehab their property versus employing REAP or slumlord landlord mandates. If you look at the transmittal in June 2003 from LAHD, it gives a sample calculation, colleagues, and this is really going to be a program, I believe, that should give incentives for landlords to get back what they deserve. That's why tenants aren't 100% happy with this. I know it's not the level that many landlords would like, but it strikes that balance, and that balance couldn't have been achieved without the advocacy of the apartment owner community. Lastly, in areas like, I live in Echo Park, it's an area which has a lot of the same old housing that was just discussed by Mr. Parks, where you do see things happening, because the thing that we're missing in this whole discussion is, if it's 45 units, what happens to the rest of the units? Well, your average unit in the city of Los Angeles turns over every 1 to 5 years. That's when we can do rehab, and that's when the rents naturally go up. That mechanism exists. And I understand the frustration of some apartment owners when you have a tenant that's there for a long time, but those are the ones, colleagues, that I would put to you are the most vulnerable, who have been there the longest time, are often senior citizens, and we are not going to take a position, I hope today, of starting to boot them all out of housing they have been in sometimes in 40 or 50 years.
Thank you.
Colleagues, in conclusion, the time to act is now. It's not that we haven't had enough deliberation on this. We've had a year and a half of deliberation. We have had over a dozen hearings on this, and we also have had participation from both sides. To me, a good compromise is when neither side is happy. That's the difficulty for us, but I think it's time to move this forward, and I would ask that we move the majority report forward today with the personnel report and the 47A technical amendment. Thank you.
Is there a second? Mr. Reyes seconds. Mr. Zine. Mr. Zine.
I had some questions, but they've been answered by the dialogue back and forth. Thank you.
Mr. Parks. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Labange for the first time.
No, thank you. Hey, Mr. Garcetti, I understand that. And I understand the passion, everybody wants it done, and I met with both sides. You mentioned 45 units have been affected this last year. I know you want to get it done here. But one of the concerns in the older neighborhoods, you talk about Echo Park, concerns I have in some of the older neighborhoods of the city is I don't want to see them bulldozed. I don't want to see them bulldozed. I want to see housing stand because it's there and find a way to do it. Now, there seemed to be some agreement. We had some discussion about having some sunset clause to this. Is it related to a year from now to study to see if it makes a big impact? Is it a negative or is it a positive? And I believe this is a positive for those people who have housing, who need housing, to try to keep it there. This is a positive. You've done a lot of work on it. But just going to ask you a question, Eric. What's a month difference make if Councilman Parks asked for?
Can I answer the two questions?
Sure, whatever you want. You're
Thank you.
a Rhodes Scholar.
Appreciate it. We've had a 2.5-month period in here. So for me, I think there is, if people want to vote for the continuation, we will obviously continue, but I think that we've had, in my experience here, we haven't had a lot of things that have had a year and a half of deliberation. And I think that is a bad reflection on us on how long this has taken. But the second piece is, for the bulldozing, this will not bulldoze because you can bulldoze today. You can bulldoze today and make this happen. So that exists today.
But you're
It's
an
not
owner,
creating
and
new.
we're on our own time, so we can do the English thing. You're an owner. You could make a determination whether I'm not going to invest in it because of whatever reason, and they just kind of walk away from it. That's the challenge that I don't want to see, because much of the area has already been built out. Mr. Parks.
One other quick thing I forgot to say.
Let me just ask.
The moratorium expires in January, so if we don't act today.
January when?
I can get you the exact date, but it's my understanding it would expire before a month from now.
Before a month. All right, that's very important. I'm sorry. Mr. Parks, Mr. Garcetti answered some of these questions here, but some of the concerns that I have, and I know I have about a minute and a half left, Alex, and I'll be quick, is to try to keep the housing stock there, but also to see that in a year, that if there is a not measurable difference, that there would be some review of this. Where's Larry Gross? Is that right? Is that what I said? To review it in a year. So that provides some protection, but an honest commitment that everybody would review it in a year if it does, because we're talking about a small number of units. And as you said, people have worked a long time. We're also running against the January clock that Mr. Garcetti said. I will conclude my remarks. I thank you, but I think it's really important that we look at the housing that exists there, because we all talk about building new housing, but that existing housing is so important for everybody. For those who own and operate the housing, for those who live in the housing, to erase that housing would be a disaster for us. Thank you.
Members, I have Mr. Parks and Mr. Reyes each for a second time, followed by Mr. Garcetti for a third time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, just a couple of comments. One of the things I think is important on this issue is that I think the key factor is that on most of our programs, one size doesn't fit all. The reason that we have neighborhood councils, the reason that we have council districts, the reason that we have so many things that we deal with on a local basis, that area planning committees are all looking at how we can develop approaches that deal with unique areas in our community. The issue is that I don't want to confuse it, is that the one-year review is for the primary renovation, and no one disagrees with that. But during that same one-year period, to eliminate the ability to have access to evictions during major rehab would affect negatively, like the young lady, Mrs. Miles, that showed up here, that for the first time homeowner that owns a duplex, that talked about how she could not even get the the electrical and the plumbing repairs done during the moratorium. Had to make at least 3 trips to the City of Los Angeles City Council to get an approval on a building that was in 1920 to get the entire rehab of the plumbing and electrical while she is living month to month in order to maintain her building. I think also, admittedly, the major rehab ordinance that was put in place '89 needs to be updated, but yet we shouldn't throw it away. Again, it's another tool, and if it's not being used in certain communities, doesn't mean that it should not be a tool available, that if Mrs. Miles needs it in order to maintain and stay in her building. Again, I think our goal should be to develop more affordable housing, but not to continue the process of regulating it till we run it out of the city. If we have the ability to look at the primary mission to preserve affordable housing, we should leave in place the the major rehab, the issue of dealing with the capital improvements, but add the primary renovation, monitor them all after a year to see which one is most functional. I think also we need to be aware of, and I don't think we've covered it adequately, is that the city attorney expressed some CEQA issues during the hearing that I think also need to be brought into play before we move forward on the primary renovation. So I would think that as we go forward, a month in time does not alter the process. It gives everybody a chance to be fully involved with this so that they can make the right decision for their district. And I think, again, we should be very, very concerned about trying to put one program together that addresses 15 districts equally when we might not have the same concerns, not have the same age of property, and certainly may not have the same developer interests in our communities.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate my colleague, Councilor Parks' point of view. But as I look back at how long we've been deliberating and all the cases we've been through, for every case that we found out how there was a hardship on a landlord, we found just as many hardships on tenants. And we talk about the notion of there's only been 45 reported cases. A key factor here is reported. There are many, many individuals, especially in my district, who do not understand the rules, who do not understand the language, and are pushed out regardless. Their toilets are taken out, the water heaters are taken out, the trash is never picked up, and it is a harassment and an abuse that you would not think would exist in the United States of America. But the bottom line is that it does. So we've been very careful in how we approach this issue. The reports that we have been looking at that speaks to how we're basing our decisions is based on news record, construction cost indexes. RS means construction cost estimates. We're looking at the CPI. We're looking at all the building contractors, both nationally and locally, and how we look at industry standards. So we're working with all the different itemized methods by which we can make these judgments. And we are certain that not one size does not fit all. That's why we need this 1 year. We need to take it to the next level. What's interesting to me is that the primary impact and utilization of the current major rehab provisions have been within the districts of CD 4, 5, 11, and 10. But what happens in districts 1, 8, 9, and 13 is that the abuse of the major rehab process is much more flagrant for all the reasons that exist when people don't understand how to defend themselves. So we are trying to create a process that's fair to the property owner and that is fair to the tenant. We have been going through a diligent process of being respectful to the experience of both parties because we know we need to work with both to make this city improve our quality of life. Colleagues, I ask that we move today because we have been on this interim phase for almost 18 months. We've been having this discussion for years and years in the city. And this is the first time under the leadership of Councilmember Garcetti and the other committee members that we've essentially been looking at this issue up front. We've been having this discussion in a very public way, and we're going to learn from this process. In a year, we'll find out more about how this is evolving, and we have a monitoring program that the Housing Department needs to respond to, and we can continue tweaking this. Again, this is not a stagnant process. It's not laid in cement. It's evolving. And this is what we can learn both from the tenants and the property owners. I really encourage your support today. Thank you.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you, colleagues, and everybody who is here today on this issue. This action is not radical, colleagues. Our inaction has been radical. The amount of time that it has taken us to act on this is something that all of us, the landlords, are not happy when we have a moratorium around the city. Our tenants are not happy when we don't have something changed. Neither side has been able to move forward. In case I didn't, for colleagues who haven't followed this closely, this is a simple program. It simply allows, it raises the threshold now for rehabilitation of units. It then allows landlords over a 2-year period to raise rent by up to 10%, an amount that many tenant groups thought was way too high and are not happy with, but over a 2-year period, 5% each year, in order to recoup that, because they should recoup that benefit. And right now, there isn't a good way to recoup that benefit. In fact, there's an incentive to try to get rid of tenants and not to actually work with them. And we know, because we've heard such moving testimony from good landlords, that they are not out to kick out tenants. They want to work with them. They're the ones who provide the housing, just as Mr. Parks said. But secondly, I know Mr. Parks said that we should be in the business just of affordable housing construction. I agree 100%, Mr. Parks. But I also do think we have to be in the business of regulation as well. Whether it's the collapse that happened in Echo Park of an apartment which buried 2 people and killed them, there are very important regulations in this city, and it is our duty to do both. In fact, we lose affordable housing when we don't regulate housing as well. So we really have to do both things. The third is, I assure Mr. Parks and anybody else that we will not move forward on the ordinance until the CEQA stuff has been addressed, and that is part of our instruction to the city attorney. So I wanted folks to know that, to be reassured about that. And lastly, I, like all of you, want to have investment in my district. Like I said, it's the 3rd poorest district in the city. We have, besides what's going on in Hollywood, we struggle to get investment in many parts of those communities which are poor. But this is only about occupied units. Let me make that clear. This today is only about occupied units. So it is not about brand new development. We have put money in the Housing Trust Fund to allow people who want to take old units to rehab them, and we encourage that so that we can stay affordable in this city, but at the same time maintain the beautiful housing that Mr. LeBons was talking about, and at the same time do it in a way that gives landlords the return that they are due. But when we look at this landlord assistance and the programs that we have in the city, we have to strengthen. We have to give more programs for loans. We have to give more programs for fixing things up. And I will be as strong an advocate as anybody for those things. I assure you that today, and as we've worked together, I was proud to be supported when I ran for election by both AGLA and tenant rights groups. I was proud of that, and I want to continue that model of where we can do more for you. But this is the wrong place to do it. These are occupied units. And it would be, I think, a great folly today if we did not move forward after 1.5 years, because what we're talking about is, if we don't move forward with something like this, is let's give assistance on the backs of the most vulnerable. My vision of giving assistance to landlords is not on the backs of the most vulnerable. It's doing it in a much more responsible way. We can do both and not pit people against each other. So I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Parks.
My final comment, Mr. Chair. One of the things I think, and just commenting on Mr. Reyes's comments about the informal evictions, they may be occurring, but this won't change it. If a landlord is out making informal evictions, threatening, intimidating tenants, this new process is not going to alter that one bit, and we still won't know about them. And the issue I think we also need to realize is that although the moratorium may expire in January, we can extend it just like we put the moratorium in place. And so the fact that we have a moratorium, it doesn't, if it stays in place, it doesn't displace, relocate anyone. It merely extends it until you can come to some resolution. And so I don't think we should use those as impediments to coming up with the best policy available. So if we need to move the moratorium to February, to where we can, or March, until we can get this resolved, it's no more than a motion that gets that done. And the other issue is that we have to be very, very sensitive to is that, again, the informal evictions will never get resolved through an act of an ordinance or what we do here. You're either dealing with positive and legal land ownership and landlords that follow the rules, or you deal with those that do not. Again, it's my belief that these kinds of one-size-fits-all is not a positive sense for the City of LA when we have area planning committees that deal with these circumstances on a local basis. So if it's a concern of the moratorium evaporating in January, I'll make a motion that we continue the moratorium until March, April, or whenever it's necessary to get this resolved, until we come back in January to deal with this.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. Again, our ability to have in the books for a tenant to defend themselves in as much as a landlord can defend themselves. And you're right, we don't know when it's happening, but when it does happen, at least there's a tenant. The tenants can have the ability to resort to the municipal code book and let them know how he was illegally treated. So for us to put this in the books is important. And when we start educating folks on what their rights are, both for landlords and tenants, then with this kind of law in place, we can have a better quality of life because we have something to stand on, something to point to. So I really believe we need to have this in place as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Members, I believe this concludes council discussion on this item. We do have a series of votes to take on this item. Madam Clerk.
The first motion is to continue this matter for 30 days, and that would be to January 16th.
Okay, is everybody clear on that? The first vote is to continue. Please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
4 ayes, 9 noes.
Okay, motion doesn't carry. Next motion, please.
Mr. Garcetti's motion to adopt the majority report and the Personnel Committee report, and 47A, which amends the majority report.
Okay, please open the roll. Roll is open. Members have an opportunity to vote. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
9 ayes, 4 noes.
That passes. Anything further on this item?
No, Mr. President. Then the minority report would be received and filed.
Okay, without objection. Members, before we proceed to the next item, let me acknowledge the time. It is 12:55 p.m. We have 13 members present. We have 20 items called special remaining on the desk. That includes the 8 closed session items. I have received a couple of requests to take items out of order. I have also received multiple requests from members to take certain items out of order because they wish to leave for prior commitments outside of City Hall. So no special treatment today. We're just going to plow through. This is also the last week of session for the calendar year, so many of the items on today's agenda, tomorrow's agenda, and Friday's agenda are time sensitive. I do ask for your patience, and I ask for your focus. Next item, please.
Item number 31 was called special by Councilmember Garcetti.
Mr. Garcetti, item 31. Unless you're ready. Let's try to be efficient, folks.
Thank you, Mr.
Item
President.
31.
And if I can just ask folks, thanks again to the landlords and to the tenants who are here today. This is a separate item. Ask staff to come to the table. They're already there magically. And I think Ms. Richmond has a couple comments you'd like to give on this item, some amendments to make, or recommendations.
Sally Richmond, Los Angeles Housing Department. First of all, we'd like to ask that this item go forthwith so that we can be signed by our current general manager and be off the desk when our new manager starts. And second, there's a minor change that was agreed to at the committee, the contract with Cotton Bridges. A city attorney was involved with allowing us to extend it through the end of 2004, but unfortunately that was inadvertently left out of the action here, so it says May 24th. That's item 1A4, contact with Cotton Bridges. So the only reason we're here at this table is to ask that that action which was taken at the Housing Committee that this be amended to end December 31st, 2004.
Okay. that good?
Emilio Rodriguez Cielo, yeah, we concur with that.
Okay, great. Well, if we can move that forward then as recommended with an amendment.
Any objection to those amendments? Seeing none, we'll consider item 31 as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved as amended. Forthwith, please. Next item.
Item number 33 was called special by Councilmember Weiss.
Mr. Weiss. Is Mr. Weiss ready on item 33? If not, we'll come back to this item. Next item, please.
Item number
Item 33, Mr. Weiss.
On item 33, I understand we've had some discussions with the mayor's office about changing the manner in which the proposal that came out of committee is drafted. And Mr. Echeverria, are you still? Mr. Echeverria, he's around somewhere. Mr. Echeverria assures me that he's going to work with me and with the mayor's office to make the changes that the people in the mayor's office were concerned about. This is a direction to the city attorney to draft an ordinance. I'm confident when it comes back, it'll be acceptable to everybody, and so I would just move the report that's before us.
Okay, any further discussion on item 33? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 41 called special by Councilmember Parks.
Mr. Parks, item 41. Mr. Parks, are you ready? We'll come back to this item. Next item, please.
Item number 42 called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Ms. Hahn, item 42.
Mr. President, thank you. I'll be quick since we have a lot of items. The only reason I called this special was because there was a suggestion that we might give our DWP customers an opportunity to check off a box on their bill where they might make a small donation to senior programs, youth programs, after-school programs, whatever. Again, in tough fiscal times, we thought we might have the ability for people who might have felt generous, something like the Project Angel that happens at the bottom of the DWP bill for residents that are unable to pay their utility bill. Well, we come to find out that our software program, the bills, could not really accommodate one more box. As you know, we talked about it. I just brought that to everybody's attention to say, every one of you in every committee that you sit on, in every contract that comes before you, in every new multi-million-dollar software program that we in the city are at some point going to contract with and pay for, let's not get a software system that literally is not able to do something which many of us feel is a simple effort on behalf of people who want to be generous. It's just another opportunity of how we in the city of Los Angeles kind of preclude the ability of people to be generous in tough fiscal times. And we seem to always look to slash programs, to cut things in the city, but the idea is for revenue to come into our city. Sometimes there's an inability to do that just because of, and what I think is just wasn't real forward thinking on the part of those who engaged in that contract in the first place. So it was disappointing to us to feel like DWP could not accommodate that simple request, but it does have something to do with our software. So again, as we go forward in this city, let's just make sure every contract we get involved in, we don't block ourselves from the ability to do something someday that seems pretty simple. Thank you.
Any further discussion on item 42? Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. As the maker of the motion, I just want a vehicle, and I also...
Electric vehicle?
Not electric vehicle, a vehicle that we could show the people at Eric Garcetti drive those electric vehicles. That the people could point to when there's good projects to help the arts, to help seniors, to help the needs, because there's going to be tough budget times. This motion was introduced in May, and it went through the committee, and there's a challenge of the mechanism there, but there's Project Angel over there. They may make Project Angel 2 or something of this nature here. The water power is always there to help, and I want to hope they can find a way to help in the future, because they collect the rate for the ratepayers' bills and all the other bills from our sanitation charges to our sewer charges, et cetera, on that bill. And I'm just trying to find a vehicle for that, and it's our hope, is since they're on Hope Street at 111 North Hope, that they could find a way to give us hope for the people of Los Angeles by pushing them to contribute to these worthy programs that are going to be severely impacted by the downturn in the state. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Other members wishing to be heard on item 42? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. There is one other DWP-related item. While the staff is still here, if we can take that very quickly out of order. Mr. Garcetti?
If item 16 was a DWP-related matter, I've talked to them, but I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on 16, if
Okay.
possible. We don't need to reconsider the, I mean,
We'll
we
change
can consider
the-
just to do a no vote.
Change the vote to reflect that change. I believe the other DWP-related item was item 67, while staff is here.
Oh, that's an ordinance, so the ordinance will then go over for, until, it's an ordinance, so the order will go over then.
Okay. Item 67 was called special by Councilmember Gruhl.
You skipped 61. Do you want, I also call that one special, or are you just going to go right to 67?
While DWP is here, we're
I'm
taking
sorry.
item 67.
I apologize. Thank you, and I appreciate you all have been sticking around for a while. Colleagues, and I talked briefly to Mr. Wiggs out in the back. Many of you know that I think those of us that represent the San Fernando Valley had asked a question this last week, along with Controller Chick, about funding for the Economic Alliance, which I think was in the tune of $100,000, what they had received in the past. And we all argued here the importance, or pointed out the importance of that organization to the economic viability of the valley and the city's participation in that, and the fact that they can document the creation of 7,500 jobs that they've had since their inception, that they've been instrumental. And so I think, and I introduced a motion today with my colleagues to ask for a report back on our economic development activities. I think we can work with the DWP to understand the prioritization of funding, et cetera. And I know, Mr. Wiggs, you have also expressed to me that your willingness to identify potentially funds for the Economic Alliance, and we would look forward to that. What we have today before us is $175,000 for a float for the Rose Parade. And so I would like to ask, and I asked some questions a little bit from people before, whether or not we could vote no today on this, what our contractual relationships are, and how we in the future look at prioritizing these. And again, I know timing is different when this decision may have been made, but I think that I want to make sure that we're funding those items that are most important to our ratepayers, those that are going to have an impact on future ratepayers. I mean, the reason we have funded economic development programs is because they actually create jobs, and those businesses then have to pay more to get into our water and power, and therefore there's a cycle. So I think that I'd like to just see if you could answer those questions on where we are in that contract, and if there's a potential for us to not act on this today.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. Before hearing from the staff, after that opening statement, I want to hear from Jim McQuiston, our one speaker card, and then we'll hear from the department.
Jim McQuiston, East Hollywood Community Association. I've been hard at work, as well as you have been in the last few weeks, on our budget crisis. The problem is we're not getting enough money into the city. Now, one of the things that the Rose Parade does is that everyone looks at our great weather, and we have to have a float in that Rose Parade to show that Los Angeles supports the Rose Parade. And then they come to Los Angeles and they spend money, and we collect sales taxes, and we collect bedroom taxes and every other kind of taxes that we desperately need. This money, $175,000, might seem a little bit large, but after going through the budget and thinking in the millions, we have such a tremendous deficit that $175,000 is a drop, not even a drop in the ocean, maybe a drop in the hemisphere, or the drop in the whole universe. So I would be violently opposed to withholding a contract to put a float in the Rose Parade. And as far as I can see from my experience, $175,000 is a reasonable amount to spend on the float. And the money that we're going to get out of that is extremely valuable for the city. So I think we would be a little misguided if we even questioned this particular expense, which is actually coming out of the Department of Water and Power, so it's really off budget in the first place.
Thank you. This concludes public comment on item 67. Now we hear from the department.
Thank you, Mr. President. David Wiggs, the General Manager. With me is Frank Salas, our Chief Administrative Officer, and Wendy Yancey, who is our representative to the council and works on these matters. First, let me try to answer in the order. Yes, based on the letter I received from the controller and the council members, I'm more than willing to take this back to our board and reconsider that request. At the time, this is my decision, and we've been trying to cut back wherever we can. Unfortunately, this came in the last 30 days after we've had some very large new post-health care benefit cost and items that have caused me to relook at a lot of this stuff, and in fact have stopped all travel and all donations, and kind of the few items we have some discretion over, I'm trying to take a hard look at. Rose Parade came before that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But yes, to answer the first question, we will take that back and we'll have it reviewed further. I have talked to Bruce Ackerman about it, and I told him, worst case, we hope it's a one-year deal only. And I was not aware of any long-term commitments that apparently he feels like the city has made, which certainly should make a difference to us as we consider this. So first, we'll do that and take it to our board first thing in January. Secondly, the commitment on the Rose Bowl Parade was not taken lightly. Initially, I was not inclined to do this at all under our circumstances. I was persuaded, however, by some elected officials that this has been a 100-year tradition. There is a lot of publicity for the city. This float is mainly a city float, not really a DWP float. And we did take it through our process, took it through our board. Our board approved it, and it's my understanding that the construction has already begun on the float and fairly well along on the float. The dollars are actually due on January 2nd. So we may be in a difficult position legally if we try to stop it this year. Maybe there's a way we should look at this with some private funding or other ways to do this next year to continue that tradition the city has had. So, we're here to ask you to move forward with that expenditure this year, and we certainly then will take the other back into consideration.
Okay, Mr. Weiss is next on the queue, and then I'll recognize the chairman of the committee.
Get pushed. Is my button pushed?
Yeah, you're on here.
Yeah, I pushed it right away. I don't know how he beat me. He was over here.
I saw you reaching for the button, Labange, and I pushed. What can I say? First, I want to thank Ms. Gruhl not only for bringing this item to my attention today, but for bringing the matter of the Economic Alliance to everybody's attention. And I'm really pleased to sign on with you both in the letter that we sent with Laura Chick and the Valley Council members and on the motion presented today. Thank you for that, and thank you for asking those questions. I got to tell you, Mr. Wiggs, what you just said actually makes me more likely to vote no than when Ms. Gruhl and I were speaking about this earlier today, because earlier today our assumption was, well, the cats or the horses already left the barn, but you're telling me that this is a fairly recent action. I mean, where are they in terms of doing the work? Is there a liquidated damages clause in the contract? Was the contract not supposed to be acted upon until the city approved it? I mean, indeed, is it a contract until we vote on it today?
Well, let me
Hold
back
my
up.
time, please.
This was approved by our board, I guess, November, last month anyway.
Okay, but is it a contract until we vote?
The contract says, and this is subject to interpretation, I guess, that shall commence upon approval by this city.
So
As a city, the board, or as a city, the city council?
My guess is that if you're here today for a vote, you're here for a legal reason. My guess is, I'd like to think that our actions aren't nullities, although sometimes they probably are. So that raises a lot of questions for me, because I don't think it's fair to put me in a position today, or anybody on this council, and say, you can't vote no, because that just invites a lawsuit that'll cost the city an equivalent or more or greater amount of money. Our votes have to mean something. So let me just stop right there. What do you believe the meaning of this vote is today?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm not sure why this particular one got into a situation where once our board voted, construction had started. We may very well have a valid legal argument that they should not have started construction. I think the problem was this came to us very late. Obviously, the Rose Bowl Parade has to go forward on a certain date, and by the time we approved it, I think they moved forward and acted believing that this would be funded. Now, you know, City Council, I cannot disagree with you. Maybe it's a good lawsuit, and maybe we just stop it. But that we are where we are, and hopefully we won't be there again. But I don't disagree with you.
Well, it's very unfortunate, because Ms. Gruhl is absolutely right that a number of us who represent the Valley want to see this city doing literally the least it can do to help small and medium-sized businesses in the Valley have the opportunity to get up and running and get on their feet and employ people in the city and make the Valley grow. And indeed, Mr. LaBonge was great to show us all the pink Cadillac that says, "We love LA," but there's no greater way to say we love LA than to fund something such as the Economic Alliance. So to fund a float this week and defund the Economics Alliance last week is a pretty difficult juxtaposition for some of us to swallow. And I'm just trying to give you a chance to explain legally why we would have to vote for this today, because I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, and I can't answer that from the city attorney's perspective legally. I can tell you that, well, they're here, and maybe they can answer that. The way it came to us, the request from the Rose Parade came about 2 or 3 months ago. We initially did not think we should do it, and then we did get convinced to do it. We took it through our committee, and the board approved it, and then apparently people built on it.
Am I correct in understanding that the fund, or the account, or whatever you want to call it bureaucratically, that the float money comes out of is separate and distinct from the fund and account that the economic development grant would have come out of?
No, right now, both of those have been coming out of simply general corporate funds.
Oh, so they come out, and ultimately, so they come from the same place bureaucratically, and ultimately, arguably at least, it's ratepayer money.
But no, all of it's ratepayer money, whether it's consumer, whether it's in the Economic Development Fund or not. We could go back, and I will go back with the board, if they want to fund the Valley Economic Development, we could take that out of Economic Development. We haven't done it in the past, and we have sent them $50,000 already this year, and this was an additional 100, which we were more than willing to go back and ask for.
All right, well, I look forward to hearing any other comments from any other council members. I'll just tell you that when I pushed my button, when I beat LaBonge to the button, my gut was, well, probably have to suck it in and vote yes, or else you invite a lawsuit. But from what I've heard, I'm now less convinced of that, and I'm more likely to vote no. I'd love to hear what Mr. LaBonge and other folks have to say. If I may recognize Mr. LaBonge, he wants to speak, Mr. President. He really wants to speak.
And now, ladies and gentlemen.
Very much. I appreciate that, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Weiss. Members, I ask for an aye vote on this because it's extremely important that we carry to tradition that started over 100 years, that the city of Los Angeles has the longest running float in that great parade. Have you been to that parade, Jack? No, sir. You have not. Well, you need to go. Get up early on New Year's Day. It's absolutely a wonderful celebration. See this picture? And Mr. McQuiston, nice remarks, Mr. McQuiston. This picture was on page of every newspaper in this town, both major metropolitan newspapers and around the world. On the front cover, this particular float, which was sponsored by the Department of Water Power, had a guest from New York that a West Los Angeles citizen named Pam Mullen hosted here in Los Angeles. And they were firefighters and Port Authority and police officers from New York right after 9/11, and Los Angeles hosted them, and they got great cheers going down Colorado Boulevard, and that's what a city's supposed to do. The same thing Water Power did in 1948 by helping start FICA, and the same thing they did 6 years ago by contributing to the Economic Alliance, which is so important for the San Fernando Valley, and I support that. And I support that greatly, but it's also very important support community and support that parade in Pasadena that starts the New Year's. You want to know why people in Los Angeles don't do anything New Year's Eve? Historically, because they all went to bed early because they got up early to go to the Pasadena Parade. It's a guaranteed fact. We're trying to change that now, Jan, with your great celebration downtown. Members, this is real important to Los Angeles, as is the Economic Alliance, and I hope the Board of Commissioners could do that. And I thank the General Manager, and I thank the Assistant General Manager and the Head of Government Relations for coming here from Water Power. But there's so many things that Water Power does that's so important. And I was the elected official, Jack, that lobbied them hard, and then I had to go to the mayor and lobby the mayor hard, and the mayor supported it, because I think it's a value. Would you like to be the city council? Would you like to represent Los Angeles the last year that broke over a 100-year tradition? I hope not. I truly hope not, because I think that's part of celebrating life. Now, what do we do next year? I'm going to come in with a motion to ask that it be, that's why I wanted that little cutoff on the Project Angel Food, because I could point people, hey, donate here so we could do to other things like that. That's why I wanted it. I thought of that in May. I thought of that in May because I wanted to do that. Now, I'm going to ask, Mr. President, at some other time that we have a motion to direct that this be, whether it's Project Restore or some other existing element within the city structure, that we could take over private fundraising initiatives for the Rose Parade float so that we could always be there, so we wouldn't have to tax the ratepayers of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. My commitment is to that. I'm never going to get asked them again for this float at all. And also, by the way, Jack, not just DWP, and I just love your name, that's why I call it that way. DWP, the harbor used to give money to Economic Alliance, and they do to support international trade. LAX used to give money to Economic Alliance, but they stopped. Why? Because of their challenges out of LAX. So it's not just Water Power that turned its back on Economic Alliance. Water Power didn't turn its back. Water Power said no to a lot of people. And then we're all coming back to ask Water Power, because where do we always turn when we got a problem? Water and Power. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr.
I call for
Zine.
an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. I enjoy your passion as this day continues. Passion for this particular subject, that is. When I look at the expenditure, and we had a conversation in the back regarding this, $175,000 in the city budget of $5 billion in the water and power revenues may not seem like a lot of money. However, when the ratepayers hear that there's going to be an 18% proposed rate increase, and the Valley Economic Alliance isn't going to receive the $100,000 they've requested to continue the progress they're doing, the ratepayers, the taxpayers of the city say, what are you folks doing? You're going to Pasadena to do a parade, which is nice. I don't know what impact that has on the city of Los Angeles, since it's the Pasadena Tournament of Roses, not the city of Los Angeles Tournament of Roses. We just had the Hollywood Christmas Parade, and we had a difficult time getting celebrities to ride in the Hollywood Christmas Parade. When we look at the expenditures of money in these hard economic times, when we're talking about furloughing some of our city employees, when we're talking about laying off some of our city employees, when we're talking about not hiring city employees, when we're talking about not paving streets and trimming trees and all the things that people need, and then they say, well, you spent $175,000 on a float to go down to a few seconds on television and then to sit there and have people pay admission, and Pasadena receives the money when they go to the park and view the floats. They say, what are you thinking with the dollars that are coming into the city when they're so scarce? And Water and Power has been very generous with the city. We charge people for electricity, we charge people for water, we have a sewer sanitation charge, we just increased the rates for the sanitation pickup, and John Q. Citizen is looking at this saying, where is the logic? You don't have the money, the state doesn't have the money, and you're going to do a float in a parade that may get 2 seconds on television. And I saw the float on television, and I saw the firefighters and the New York police officers, and it was very nice. But at that economic time, we weren't faced with what we're faced with now. We didn't have the $38 billion state deficit. Are they going to float $50 million in bonds? $15 billion in bonds. So when we analyze it, it may not seem like a lot of money, but what is the message we're sending out to our city employees when we're saying we're going to reopen your contracts to cut the salaries? We're talking about furloughing, and we're going to spend $175,000, which is more money than many of our city employees make in a year. How does the logic come across? Any of our city employees, well, it's more than we make, that's for sure. Well, it's more than some of us make. At any rate, that's a difficult pill to swallow, and that's the message, is that, and I don't blame you, Mr. Wiggs, I don't blame Mr. Labange, I understand the tradition, but we don't have the dollars. And we don't have the dollars, and we do something like this, then people look at us and say, you're being deceitful, because you really have the money if you can do a float in the Tournament of Roses parade. I wish it was the Hollywood parade where we had millions of people and national coverage, and we had to scrape to get the parade this year in Hollywood. Pasadena didn't give us any money. They didn't give us a float. They didn't give us anything. So we're going to give them $175,000 for a 2-second appearance on television, national television. That's the difficult sell to the voters. That's a difficult sell to ratepayers when they're looking at an 18% increase in their rates, and then they look at how we're spending their money, whether it's $175,000 or $175 million.
Mr. Cardenas.
I think it's unfortunate that this debate even needs to happen today, because this all might be a moot point on the float for this year, and I don't understand why there's nobody here who can tell us whether or not we're legally bound to the Phoenix Decorating Incorporated Company for the float that is going to occur just in a few weeks. Because that's the issue before us, is that there are other related issues that everybody has touched on. Is, well, where's the logic here? Why are we spending $175,000 for a float outside of our city? You're absolutely right, Dennis. The Hollywood Parade, the Pacoima Parade, the Van Nuys Parade, all of these different parades happening within the jurisdiction of the ratepayers who are paying for the $175,000 to the Pasadena Parade. This is a debate that is going to happen not only here, but it's going to happen in my committee. And hopefully we're going to get to the business of looking at, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, many more line items that have ever been reviewed by by my committee that oversees DWP. So my question to you is, do you have the answer about the January 1st, 2004 parade float as to whether or not contractually we are bound? Or in other words, they say, okay, fine, if you cancel it now, you owe us $150,000 instead of the whole $175,000. Then if that's the case, then why throw $150,000 away? Let's just go ahead and do the float. Anybody have that answer?
You know, I cannot tell you right now I have it. I've been advised that it started and that we are legally bound, but reading the contract myself with some legal background, we certainly have an argument. Maybe they shouldn't have started work. Apparently, the other thing that we may have some issue on, I'm told by Mr. Salas that this has kind of been the practice over many years, that they move forward after the board votes and then the city council ultimately approves it. So we may have some prior practice that we have to deal with also on this.
Exactly what we're going to be looking at in committee.
It's not good, and what I can tell you is that, you know, I certainly would like to avoid this. We are a city department. We don't want to get in this position, don't want to put you in this position. We may be in it this year. I can get a more formal legal opinion if we want to go down that path, and
absolutely we need that legal opinion.
Certainly willing to ask our city attorney for that.
Point of order, if there's a concern about a legal opinion and some question about whether or not there's reliance on past action, should we continue this one day to get that answered?
Yeah.
Is that a motion?
Definitely.
Mr. Cardenas, is that a motion? Is there a second? Ms. Sikowski seconds. Ms. Gruhl.
Just in closing, because I think since we are going to continue it one day, but I think, colleagues, this is why I brought this item up, because I think we had a lot of questions about this expenditure of funds and the process where we are. And so I'm glad that Mr. Cardenas introduced the motion to actually have you, or Cindy did, to come back tomorrow with the answers, because we need to think of some more creative ways in which we fund these. I don't disagree with Mr. LeBond that it would be great if we could have a float, but not paid by our city, ratepayers, if there's another way in which people can identify, others can raise funds to do that, to highlight the city of Los Angeles. But I think with the rate increases we're considering, the economic alliance issue that has come up in the last week, that you sense that there's not agreement here today on approving this item. So look forward to the answers that we'll hear tomorrow on this item.
I have Ms. Perry on the queue, followed by Mr. LeBlanc and Mr. Weiss, each for a second time. Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Question for Mr. Wiggs. I'm assuming that the group that is assembling the float is a for-profit company?
Yes, it's a company that bids on this and has gotten the bid the last several years, so I assume they make a profit, yes. I don't know that, but I assume they do.
Well,
It's a professional private firm, so it's not a volunteer group.
I don't know how the legal issues play out on this issue with respect to where we are today, but on a going forward basis, is there any possibility for the next year that we can get, for example, a nonprofit so that items, time, supplies, and all that can be donated, and that this can be a volunteer effort so that we don't have to repeat this again next year?
Certainly, given enough lead time, we could probably do that, but if we wait until November to decide, we don't have that option. But if we start early, that might be something that we could do.
Well, I'm suggesting that we consider that now.
Okay.
And I don't know how the rest of the body feels, but if that's something that people are interested in considering, I would make a motion for the next year, which would be 2004 to 2005, or I guess the 2005 Rose Bowl Parade. And if Tom would second that, that would be great.
Okay. Ms. Perry, you want to establish that policy today? Mr. Cardenas has mentioned discussion in committee on the
All right.
future.
Well, however you want to handle it, that's fine. My suggestion specifically is that, though, that, well, he said that Mr. Cardenas was going to have it through committee anyway, so I don't intend to be redundant, but should I make the motion or not?
Okay, then we can make the motion and have
Okay,
that
great, and then refer
sent
it to his
the
committee. All right. Then I'm making the motion that on 2004 to 2005, or the 2005 Rose Bowl Parade, that we, our LA DWP float be put together by a nonprofit group so that we can solicit donations or have contributions, donations, but that it's an all-volunteer contributed effort instead.
I am advised, which we will certainly do, I'm advised that they do use a lot of volunteers to put the flowers on and make, that the professional help comes in designing the floats and
Well,
building the
perhaps they
floats.
can,
So we can
donate
try
their time
anything.
next year,
See if
get a
we can
receipt
find
for
it.
it, take it off their taxes, something like that.
Sure, we're more than
Thank you,
willing.
Ms. Perry.
Project Restore?
Chair.
Maybe not.
The chair now recognizes Mr. Labange.
Thank you. I said earlier in my remarks, this is the last time we're asking Water Power to do it. And I think this is the last time we're going to ask Water Power to do a lot of things. Because I think everyone has said, as Mr. Cardenas spoke of, and unfortunately his committee didn't meet, but it was scheduled for his committee. We were going to come and discuss it in committee at the time, but his committee wasn't able to meet, so we had to come to full council on this, which always shows the benefit of having something in committee on this. But Jan, they make these floats. It is probably a profit-making company that is out there. There's many people who make floats in Southern California, not just for our parades, but from around the West to the world on this. But this is the last time we're going to ask this. It doesn't need to go to the committee. I'm going to have a crafted motion that asks that we make a decision whether or not we want to have a float in the 2005 parade. I hope we can have a float in 2004 parade. And I would expect all the great councilmen and councilwomen of this city council to support that. I would hope all the great councilmen and councilwomen to support that. But I want to say in 2005, we should reestablish what our commitment is. We should meet with the mayor. We should discuss it with our neighborhoods. And maybe you should have an understanding, Mr. Zine. Don't blame it on Pasadena. You know, all the beauty of us is this region. You know, we get benefit from all over. There's a seamless, if I could borrow Mr. Garcetti's word that he often uses, there's a seamless border in Southern California that if we're good, other cities are good, and if they're good, we're good. So there's a cooperation that's there. So I wanted to just comment on that, Dennis, because you touched a chord with me on that. But I think we all should participate and see this parade and what it does for all of us. And it's the exposure. But I think it's the last time we're going to ask Water Power, not just for this, but a lot of things. And then you start just saying no to everything. And then that's okay. Thank you. I'm sorry Mr. Cardenas has stepped away, but I wanted to mention, because some of his remarks is we didn't have the ability to be in committee to discuss this at full. It's going to be continued one day, correct? Thank you.
Mr. President, I have one follow-up question. In addition to the $175,000, if you could also bring back tomorrow, is there a cost for us to participate in the parade itself? In addition to the float cost, is there a cost for the City of LA to be a participant in that parade?
Yes, I think it is. It's about $2,500 if I remember correctly.
Okay, if you could bring that back to
Mike will request all costs incurred.
Okay.
With being a participant. Mr. Labange, before we vote.
I mentioned hundreds of volunteers as city employees go out with their families and several days prior to the 1st of January to decorate the float and volunteer. Whether it's water power employees or city employees, it's a tremendous asset. And I just wanted to mention that point because someone thought we paid for everything. We do have a lot of volunteerism that does create that. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Any final discussion? Is there any objection to the one-day continuance?
Mr. President, we will bring that back if that's fine. I did want to say this, just while we're on the subject. We are very sensitive to this and have really reduced our budgets for these type of sponsorships from probably well over $2 million to about $1.5 million last year, and another $400,000 we've lopped off this year. It is a ongoing kind of debate. What should we give to? We take guidance from our elected officials. Most private companies will give about 0.3% of their gross revenues back to community. We give less than probably 0.05% back now, but we will take this guidance. We will try to get the answer legally, and then maybe some policies on what you want us to pursue or not pursue. We are certainly willing to and open to those discussions.
Okay, thank you very much. And without objection, we'll see you tomorrow. Next item.
Item number 46 was called special. Inasmuch as there are 2 reports on the file, a motion is required.
Okay, members, we have item 46 now before us. I need a motion. Item 46. We have a Budget and Finance Committee report. We have an Audits Committee report. Mr. Parks moves the Budget Committee report. Any further discussion? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Mr. President, we were holding item number 41 for Councilmember Parks. He had called that special.
Item 41, Mr. Parks. Mr. Parks.
I held that for Jan. She has a question.
He held it for me. Is there anybody, well, James, yes, Mr. Okazaki's still here. I just wanted to remain vigilant on the issue of DASH service through the area known as Skid Row, and whether or not that's been incorporated as part of this action today.
We are continuing to study the council recommended study to look at Skid Row Dash. That work is continuing with your staff. That has not been included as part of this report. This report was prepared back in June 27th of 2003 to continue the existing Dash service. So no, it has not been included.
Okay, and then can you just review the process for responding people who were bidding for the contract and just review that process for us?
Yes. Initially, we issue a letter of solicitation to all available bidders, contractors. We sent out about 150 letters. From that, we have requests from 25 potential bidders who said they wanted the full RFP. We sent it to them. We had a pre-bid conference. This was back in December of 2002. And from that pre-bid conference, we had about 20 people show up, but we actually only got 3 written proposals from the actual request for proposal. From that, we spent about 4 months. DOT staff, we had a representative from County of LA, MTA, and the City of Carson who sat on a panel. We evaluated the proposals based on the rating categories, including qualification of the proposer, qualification of proposed staff, operating methodology. Those were all 20%, and cost effectiveness, which is the most important for us, 40%. And of the 3 companies, we looked at all of that, and a company called First Transit, who is currently the provider also of the existing Dash downtown service, was recommended by the panel of experts who ranked the companies who bid on this proposal. The other 2 companies are a company called Laylaw Transit and Connex West. All of these companies are multinational companies that serve across the country, and they've been rated to be very good in all categories, but First Transit did have a slightly higher score in the evaluation than the other two. The differential in cost was very small between the first and the second. The First Transit had a 5-year total cost of $46.6 million versus $47.0 from Laylaw. And Connex, the third rank, was only $3.8 million more. So they were all very competitive. But First Transit did come out to be our recommended contractor on all categories, including cost.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on this item? Mr. Labange, followed by Mr. Zine and Mr. Villaraigosa. Mr. Labange passes. Mr. Zine?
I have a question. Thank you, Mr. President. Regarding the security costs on this, are those included or is that separate? Or are there any additional costs regarding security?
We do not include security costs as part of the operating costs. The security is performed by LAPD and, in some cases, county sheriff. As I explained earlier to you, Councilman, which I plan to do further, is that...
I'm specific on this particular line because I know that particular area has some unique
downtown
situations. And I didn't know if there was anything extra that would be provided in that contract for that service.
Negative.
Okay. Now, the overall picture on security, we will discuss later.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Villaraigosa.
Yes, Mr. President, members. The Transportation Committee had an opportunity to review this contract, and we initially, as a new committee, decided that we wanted to hold off on approving the contract in our first meeting in July. We had the staff revisit this issue and other issues. The staff committee that reviewed these proposals did their due diligence, and the entire committee fully supports the proposal before you.
Thank you very much. Anything further on this item? If not, let's proceed with the vote. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you very much.
That is approved. Ms. Mizikowski.
Mr. President, on Mr. Cardenas's behalf, he called items 65 and 66 special. They are just communications from the Board of Harbor Commissioners, which ask us to approve the Board of Harbor Commission action, subject to some language contingent on including living wage ordinance and contractor worker retention ordinance. We've been advised by the city attorney and the CAO that both of those contracts have been amended to include that language satisfactorily, so we can move forward on 65 and 66.
Okay. Any further discussion on 65 and 66? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. I've also been requested to send item 11 and item 68 forthwith. Forthwith on 11 and 68. Next item, please.
Item number, excuse me.
61.
61, called special by Councilmember Grill.
Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President and Madam Clerk. It will be very brief because we have been here a long time today. This item is regarding contractor performance. We have all heard the horror stories from our departments where we have a contract with a particular entity and it gets stalled for 5 months, 500 no-pegs that come in the wrong size, the fact that we have contracts on, this particularly came to our Personnel Committee, Mr. Zine, which was relative to our tax finance and not having the computer systems in place. So we asked to have the city attorney and the CLA to report back on incentives or performance clauses that we could guarantee that the city will receive its quality products as well as receiving it in a timely manner. For the instance in which we had our tax system, we are losing potentially revenue because we don't have the best system in place. And I think Ms. Hahn mentioned in her remarks earlier that the computer system DWP had would not allow us to have an extra line, that we need some of that flexibility. So I'm just wanted to point out to you that at this time of a very tight budget, we need to ensure that we have the most flexibility and protect our taxpayer dollars and make sure that our contractors are held accountable. So we look forward to having the city attorney and CLA come back with that language that will assist us in that effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? If not, then open the roll on this matter. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item.
Item number 70, called special by Councilmember Smith.
Mr. Smith, did you want to discuss that, or? All right, Mr. Smith indicates that his questions have been answered on that, so if no one else wishes to speak on this matter, open the roll on the recommendation, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved.
Item number 77, called special by Councilmember Zine.
Madam,
Mr. Villaraigosa.
can we expedite, have item 41 go forthwith?
Forthwith on item 41. Item 77, Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam President. The item calls for a major street improvement, and I'd like to have a couple changes made to that motion on the particular aspect of personnel. There's a request for 26, I believe, personnel to be assigned to this project. And to change recommendation number 4 and replace blanket unfreeze with backfill authority to unfreeze for duration of the project only with no backfill authority. I request that amendment. And also requesting the solvency of the funding source, the special gas tax, street improvement capital, how much we have in that to cover the cost of this major project. And I don't know if staff is here for the question. Yes, they are. Just the solvency fund, and then if we can get an agreement on the unfreeze for the duration with no backfill authority.
Yes, good afternoon, council members. Tom Thomas, Assistant Director of Bureau of Street Services. There's Ariel Sauceda, Assistant Director, and Ron Olive, who's our Principal Engineer, who's been involved with this project. Yes, the funding's been approved. The funding is there.
Is there a problem with the unfreeze for the project time?
Well, we certainly would like to have backfill authority, but understand under the current situations, fiscal situations, that the current policies and procedures are no backfill authority, so we can live with that. We can deal with that.
Thank you.
Let me recognize Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to thank you all. I know how hard you're working. I know how hard people in your department are working. The people in my office and in my district really appreciate your efforts. This is the second largest public works project in the city right now. The first largest public works project is another project in my district, and you guys are working overtime to really improve our infrastructure in CD5, and I very much appreciate your efforts. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilmember.
All right, we then have the recommendation, as Mr. Zine added, before us with the committee report. Please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam President, do you wish to clear the desk before going into closed session?
Let's do so.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
They are posted and referred.
And the excuses on the desk. Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused Friday, January 30th for city business that meets council policy.
Councilmember Hahn is excused.
Councilmember Perry requests to be excused Wednesday, December 17th to leave at noon. That also meets council policy.
Councilmember Perry is excused on that date.
And Councilmember Garcetti requests to be excused to arrive at 10:45 on December 17th. That meets council policy.
That Mr. Garcetti is also excused to arrive late.
And Madam President, there is a special meeting that is a closed session. Do you wish to recess the regular meeting and go into the special meeting?
No, let's go into our regular meeting, closed sessions, and then can we go into during closed session?
It's a separate meeting, so council would need to then adjourn the special meeting and then go back into the regular closed session. So it would be up to the council, but it would.
Okay, let's go through the items that are on the agenda in this regular meeting under closed session. And I also want item 133 to go forthwith at the request of Councilmember Perry. Can we now prepare the chambers for closed session? Everyone who is not supposed to be here on Mr. Weiss.
Welcome back into open session. Madam Clerk, item
Yes,
before us.
yes, Mr. President. There are settlements, item number 124, and that's in the case of Frank Medina versus City of Los Angeles. That is in the amount of $400,000.
Okay, let the, first of all, roster reflect that Mr. Reyes is out. We do have a bare quorum of 10 members present. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith, please. Next item.
Next item is item 123, and that's settlement in the case of Stubbs versus City et al., and that's in the amount of $175,000.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith, please. Next item.
Item number 122, and that's settlement in the case of Garcia King versus City, and that's in the amount of $190,000.
Mr. Weiss,
Sorry?
you wish to be recognized?
No?
Okay. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved.
One we were on and closed.
Next item, please.
Item 20 is a non-monetary settlement, and that's regarding various modification of conditions and nuisance operation.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith, please.
Item number 126 is a settlement Viacom and City versus Gold Mountain, and that's deleting a condition of approval and accepting a sum of $100,000 in settlement.
Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith, please.
And that concludes the closed session votes in the regular meeting.
Okay. Colleagues, we do have a special meeting that has been agendized for today as well. Madam Clerk, would you please temporarily recess the regular meeting and please call the roll on the special meeting?
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Han, Labange, Ledo, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weiss, Sine, Padilla. 10 members present, Mr. President.
Okay. The special meeting is now in session. First order of business, please.
It is a closed session item, and that's per Government Code 54956.9B and/or C.
Okay. Is there anything before going into closed session?
No, Mr. President.
If not, then in accordance with California law, the council will now adjourn into closed session for our special meeting item. Sergeants, please clear the chambers. Welcome back into open session. Madam Clerk, the motion before us, please.
The motion before council was to authorize the city attorney to file legal action with the state.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 1 no.
That is approved. And we also have a status report scheduled for the first Wednesday council meeting in January. Anything else?
And that clears the desk for the special meeting, Mr. President.
Let us now adjourn the special meeting and return to the regular meeting. Any items remaining on the desk?
No, Mr. President, that clears the desk for the regular meeting also.
Yes, before we do that, item 113 forthwith, please, and item 133 forthwith. Any housekeeping?
No, that was done before closed session.
Do we have announcements today, colleagues? It's been a long one. Mr. Labange.
Why not? 106 years ago, the city of Los Angeles. Yeah, I got to tell you.
This meeting started.
I got to like that. That's all right. No. 106 years ago, we received our greatest gift, over 3,000 acres of land known as Griffith Park. And I wanted to recognize it because I think it's a very special day to celebrate that wonderful park and open space. Thank you.
Other announcements? Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to announce in our Lemert Park area, Degnan and 43rd Street, one of our grassroots organizations, Black Women Forum, is having a holiday tour of the Lemert Park Shopping District. There will include many of the local artists, actors, and athletes will be in the area. It will be from noon to 3 o'clock Saturday, December the 20th.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Other announcements? Other announcements? If not, do we have adjourning motions today? Please rise for adjourning motions. Can I ask for order? Can I ask for order? Mr. Labange.
Members, I ask that we adjourn in memory of Lloyd E. Rigler, who was a great patron of the arts. He was a resident of the Santa Monica Mountains and the Hollywood Hills. He's contributed all over the city, and if you look at the plaques at many of the county and facilities, you could see Lloyd Rigler's name there. He and his business partner developed the very Adolf meat tenderizer, and from that success, he always felt it was important to give back, and he was one of the greatest patrons of the art. He was 4 of 5 children. A fourth of the 6th child in his family was born in North Dakota and came west here to Los Angeles. The dancing doors that are up at the Music Center, which is a wonderful piece of public art, is a contribution that he has made over the years. And he was very active. And last year, or earlier this year, I just visited with him at one of the community and art events. Lloyd Rigler was also a great supporter of KCET in Los Angeles and public television, in supporting PBS and doing the work of that. He was a wonderful man who had 11 nieces and nephews. He is a very good man. We'll all miss Lloyd Rigler and his contributions to the city and county of Los Angeles, especially in the way as it relates to arts.
Ms. Miskowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to have the council adjourn in the name of Manuel Manny Perez, who was a former principal inspector for the City Department of Building and Safety, and is the father of Ruben Perez, who is followed in his father's footsteps and is at the City Building and Safety Department today as a principal inspector. He's also survived by his wife, Jovita Perez, 8 children, 30 grandchildren, 38 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren. The city's Building and Safety Department is very, very much sorrowful over his passing. In fact, I think there's going to be a large number of people contingent at the services on Thursday. But he was a great member of the city workforce family who's got many of his children, grandchildren, and nieces and nephews are also city employees, and so he has impacted us greatly.
Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 adjourning motions. First one is Kenneth Alonzo Ship, passed away on December the 9th of this year at the age of 78. He was born on the 14th of December and would have celebrated his 79th birthday. He was employed by the City of LA for 44 years, served with the LAPD for 22, and then the LAX Police Department for 22 years. He's been married for 56 years. He's been a constituent of the 8th District since 1967. His funeral service will be held at Angelus Funeral Home Thursday, December 18th at 10 a.m. He leaves his wife, Ruby, 1 daughter, Karen, and 1 grandson. And also, I'd like to ask us to adjourn in memory of Julio Gonzalez, who passed away on 12/5/03. He was a pioneering Hispanic leader in the Los Angeles Police Department's Community Relations Section, who later served on the board of the California Youth Authority for 4 years and was the U.S. Marshal for the L.A. Central District, where he's in charge of the 50 federal courts for a 6-year period. A few years ago, he was honored by then-Mayor Richard Riordan and the LAPD as the department's Latino Ambassador of Goodwill. for improving relationship between the police department and the Hispanic community during the 50s and 60s. He was the first officer charged with reaching out in the Hispanic community. Julio conducted programs, Spanish language TV on KMEX TV, the radio stations KLAI AM and also KWKW AM. He joined the police department in 47, retired in 67. He was a champion of many causes and was a member of a variety of boards and committees, the All Nations Boys Club, the East Side Central Friendship Day Camp, and the Woodcraft Rangers. He will be missed by all. He leaves his wife, Julie, and one son.
Ms. Perry.
I wanted to ask if it's all right with Ms. Zakowski and Mr. Parks if we all went on those certificates for Mr. Perez and then for the former
All
city
members.
employee.
All members on both tributes. Other tributes?
President, then I'd like to ask
Mr.
you,
Labange.
I think it's an All-Members Day. Lloyd Rigler really was significant to all of the arts in the community. And
All members. Other tributes? Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.